Hello and welcome to the BNB show. My name is Brandon, and this guy right here, that's Brendon. Seahawks Brendon Nelson back in the house here at the Hawks Nest. Thank you for Brendon jumping on in here on a Tuesday after a tough game. It's not always easy to do these breakdowns after that, but I appreciate you jumping on in. How's the mindset? How's the fandom head, so to speak, as it operates now? Start this week.
I mean, we knew a few of these were going to come. We know they're going to come, right? Yeah, like you're not going undefeated, and you're going to lose some games. So it's going to happen. That doesn't make it any more fun to deal with, but they happen.
I'm very interested. We talked a little bit before this, but I'm very interested to get your elaborate thoughts on this a little bit because this is a game that has felt to me like the Hawk fans have been. Some Hawk fans have hit with a kind of a hard stretch on this, coming to certain conclusions about this team or players on this team, or about what this team can accomplish this season. And I'd like to know if you are in a similar stage coming out of this as a loss in that way. Is that does it tell you grand tales about the team? Does it give you a finality about things, or is it a loss is more a bump in the road as part of maybe a progression? Or I don't want to speak for you, whatever you may think it to be.
Well, I think that there are many different angles you can look at this game from. I think there are a lot of different ways you can take a game like this. And for me personally, I'm pretty conflicted on this one because on the one hand, I was thinking about this a little after the game was over, and I was thinking to myself, if we had lost this game the way we thought we were going to lose this game, because I had 30-27 Bengals, you had something very similar to that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was
27-24 something, but same
yeah,
along the same lines. Yeah.
yeah. If we had lost the game that way, which both of us kind of expected to happen, I think that the mood would have been more like, oh, well, that's the team that we know we have. It's a team that's good on offense. They can score a lot, but the defense, it's just not there yet. And you put it all together, it's like this is the team that we thought we were going to have in the offseason, right? And that team is going to be good, but greatness eludes them because the defense isn't good enough. And you're coming out of that game feeling something very different, I think. You're actually, in a way, it's much better to lose a game like this if you're going to lose, because now you can say, wait a minute, is this defense really starting to figure it out? It's possible, right? That
Yeah.
was the best game this defense has played in quite some time, I think, because I do take that Bengals offense seriously. I got a lot of comments from people saying, oh, the Bengals offense is terrible this year, but I think we all know why that's the case. I don't read into that. I'm throwing that first month out personally, and I think that anybody who understands how football works should understand why that's the case. But um I do think that it's much better to look at it through that lens because you're saying, okay, we know the offense can be good because we've seen them be good this year. We've seen them be good last year. We see the talent. This offense has too many good players to not be good at some point.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to see this defense come to life. Like the last two games, they've been lights out. As good as you can play, I think, pretty much.
I think they have as well, Brendan, and I echo your thoughts. There seems to be an online thought process that this is a homer thinking, but it's actually housed in the fact, just as you eloquently put it. No, the defense is now in a surprising fashion coming together and looking like it has an upside that we didn't foresee coming into the season. And we know the offense can be good, and I think we have some feasible explanations for why the offense maybe wasn't performing at its best against that Bengal team on the road, but since you do bring it up here with the defense, and since I know that we're looking for some good silver linings here, so we're going to have to talk about some difficult things today overall. Let's talk about this defense and how they played and how they got this done. I was so very impressed. I said in my post game, and I kind of still feel this a couple days later, even though statistically it's not in the same realm of the Giants game. You didn't hold them down to the same amount of points. You didn't get the same amount of pressures. But it did feel to me like almost a more impressive a performance because I guess I look at it like you do too, being that you came into this game with the Bengal team rounding into shape offensively. They're not in the same shape they were 3 weeks ago as far as how that offense functioned. And so you got to look at them more through how they've been in recent history, more than how you could look at them in the start of the year. And I was really impressed by how we defensively, we 5 straight stops to finish this game off, I believe is how it all went. What's caused this turnaround, Brendan? How's this team pulled this off?
I think it's simply a matter of getting your secondary out on the field at the same time. This was the first time we've seen Witherspoon and Woolen and Adams and Diggs And I'm going to start putting Trey Brown in there, I guess, because he's actually having a phenomenal season so far. I think you got to start to at least consider elevating him to that part of the conversation.
Indeed.
And maybe you throw Julian Love in there, although he actually didn't play that much in this game because everybody else went the whole game. So there wasn't a lot for him to pick up. But I think getting all those guys out there, there's just way too much talent for them not to play like this. And you pair that with a pass rush that is good. I like our edge room. I don't know if our defensive line is going to hold up the whole year, but right now it's a very good defensive line. The players are just too good. And I think you are starting to see some adjustment on the part of Pete Carroll and Clint Hurd, who called you got to say, really good game on Sunday as well. There's starting to be some understanding of how to utilize this talent. And I think it's pretty elementary. They're too good to be anything other than this. They're too talented.
They really are. We can't forget how much they put into this defense and that it hasn't gotten the returns up until this point, but that doesn't mean that the talent isn't within it or that they haven't stacked as much as they can to try to build it into potential strength here into the long term, if not the short term, Brendon. I just thought, like you say, everybody's kind of cohesively going together too. You're seeing not only the return of the secondary talent back into bloom, but you're seeing how the front's working together and stopping the run. And then that's maintained throughout the course of the season. But now we're getting the pass rush over the course of the recent weeks, starting to get maybe more of an uptick, starting to feel maybe a little bit more of the presence of BT Jordan as that specialist coming in here and getting a little bit more of the returns back from him. It all feels like it's coming together a little bit with that. We'll see if it does maintain. It is just a kind of a two game sample size situation, but I do think that it's very encouraging as we go long-term down this season, because if this defense can find a higher top end, I'm going to trust as we eventually do talk into the offense that they're going to, find their footing there, and they're going to, when certain things, if things settle out, again, another conversation for a little later on the show, but everybody's playing solidly all on that defense. Jamal Adams was also really good, I thought, in this game, feel a little bit more of his presence. So, I mean, we're not looking at him and saying, oh my God, he's after this ligament injury, he's a shell of himself out there. I mean, it's a small sample size, but the early returns with him out there on the football field has been fairly impactful. I'm not saying he's directly the guy doing Witherspoon doing what he's doing and all the other guys. It's a team effort here getting this done, but I certainly think he's helped. He certainly has helped, as you know.
He looked great. I thought he looked great flying around, making tackles. He looked completely normal. He looked like the Adams of a couple years ago. So I'm not seeing any issues there right now. And obviously he's going to have to prove it in games coming forward, but you're not going to play a receiver core better than that Bengals receiver core. You're not even close. Probably the closest you're going to get is the receivers you line up against in practice, right?
That's true. Yeah, I would say so. I mean, this is definitely going to be the best that we're going to face this year, maybe absent Eagles with the Devontae Smith and Brown that they can throw at you, and we'll see where the health is of the Niners team. But this one is one that is as tough as any. And you mentioned Trey Brown. I'll tell you the play that I loved, I think even above the interception in this game, Brendon, was him going down the sideline. And that's the matchup you wonder about with him. Because you go, okay, he's twitchy. He can move fast. He's got a good feel for how to play the position. But when it comes down to the bottom line that you'd worry about with a smaller cornerback, and you're 5'9", and you're going up against a receiver 6'2", 6'3", and Tig Higgins, and you got a guy in Burrow who can accurately throw a trust ball up there, not just throw a blind one up there where it's kind of off a little bit, but put it right where he wants to put that. And Brown able to get that paw up in there and rip that thing away like he did on right when you need that play as a third down conversion. Game's over if you allow that. And not physical, not handsy there, step for step with the guy, and then makes the play on the ball on top of it. I think what he's doing is legitimate here. And I've been thinking for a while, we've talked about it, is his upside. What is his upside? People have asked us often in the chat. And I've often said, I think it's DJ Reed. As DJ Reed rounded in the player he became to get that free agent deal with the New York Jets.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, it's easy to forget because last year he played like 11 snaps, but he was playing well in 2021. So I guess you could say he's kind of back on schedule. I guess you could kind of put it that way.
It's my opinion, but I think that it's been very clear as far as rookie cornerbacks that have come through and played in Seattle and played early on in the performance level over a 12-year stretch with under Coach Carroll. And tell me if you disagree with this. I think at the top, Tariq Woolen gave you a gold standard for play for a rookie cornerback on what he did last year. I think Richard Sherman would be number 2. I'd have Trey Brown is the third most impressive rookie performance, to go back to that time you're talking about, of any other corners that have come through here and played as rookies like Shaquille Griffin and down through the ladder. So was impressive in that rookie year, major injury, now had time to fully get back from it, and now he's running seemingly at full speed. Couple of interceptions on the year already, but also looking good in coverage in addition to it. So his development now gives them so much flexibility, Brendan, too, with this on the future stuff and who you play in the slot and how you move guys around and how unpredictable you can be with your formation packages, because you're not just feeling compelled to have to stick Witherspoon out there on the outside, right?
Yeah, it seems like I, I I mean, we've talked before about Trey Brown playing in the nickel, but we haven't done it yet, and I don't think he did that in college, so
No.
it's a hypothetical. So I don't really want to mess with it right now. I'm not feeling the need to say, "Hey, we got to throw this guy in slot because he looks like a slot corner."
Yeah. If he's pulling a 90 grade down to get or 80 grade down to game on the other side, he's forcing quarterbacks to eventually be testing over on Woolen's side. And Woolen didn't have maybe his best game out here in this one, but I still trust in Woolen's abilities. And the whole point of the Witherspoon pick was eventually get this into a situation where we're not having a thing like Richard Sherman, where you got a great cornerback on one side of the field, but the quarterbacks end up throwing it everywhere else and just avoiding that side. And you don't maximize a playmaker on the outside like you had in Sherman at that time.
Yeah, it's starting to really look like we might have that thing that I know Carroll's wanted for a very long time. That he's even when we had Sherman and Brown and Lane, I don't think we really had it. Just
No.
what are quarterbacks going to do? And this, I did a video about this yesterday morning. That was one of the most inefficient games of Joe Burrow's career.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you include the inefficient games that he had in like his rookie year and earlier this year when he was playing with his bad calf, bad ankle, whatever it was.
Calf, yeah.
Yeah. That was one of the most inefficient games of Joe Burrow's career, and he had all three of his receivers. Like, this was not a game. T. Higgins was not out. So like there is something special brewing here. I can completely get behind that. I can completely see that angle of it, and it should. If you're a Seahawks fan, you should look at that and get excited, because I think deep down, although some people may not be willing to admit it until they actually see it in action, we know this offense can be good. We know that what this offense is capable of.
Yeah.
But until this week, until the game on Sunday, I don't think we had any real reason to believe the defense could be anything better than like barely average. But now we're starting to get a sense that all these investments might finally be paying off.
I guess you just put to why I come out of this game so more into a camp of being encouraged rather than discouraged. So much more encouraged for the future than looking away. Because the thing that you and I railed on in that opening week with the Rams, a loss that you and I felt much worse about, was the fact that you weren't seeing changes in the defense and that you were seeing the same old kind of soft coverages. Something I saw today too that was notable, or not today, a couple of days ago, that I thought stood out to me too, Brendan, was the tight coverages. The coming up and playing stuff tight, not just sitting back into depth and hoping that, you're just going to get Burrow to make a mistake, but taking away those short routes and doing it in a way that was aggressive, I thought. And doing it where, Brendan, they didn't just simply try to blitz. I didn't think blitzing him a lot was the smart way to go with Burrow, because he's going to get you that way. They avoided that, but they found a way to still be aggressive and kind of clamp things down, didn't they, without actually having to necessarily risk a lot in the blitz game to do so with that.
Yeah. I mean, there was a little bit of blitzing. We're still sending the inside linebackers a pretty decent amount, it feels like. But I think that's probably the right thing to do as well, because both Wagner and Brooks have shown they are good blitzers. And you got to blitz some of the time. You can't just send 3 or send 4 every single play. So I feel like we've maybe happened onto something here. I feel like we've maybe found something that can work. And it would be very weird if the team would look at a result like this game, and I would throw in the Giants game as well. I know the Giants are running a remedial offense right now, but it's still an NFL team. It'd be very weird if they looked at the results the last 2 weeks and went, let's go back to the old stuff, right? Let's just go back to the stuff that got us killed against the Rams and Lions and da-da-da-da-da. I don't think that's going to happen.
I wouldn't either. I think they would be like, okay, we're kind of onto something with this. Let's stay with this approach. I'm a little bit late on a couple of donos here. Let me catch up a few. Few more Seahawks. Thank you for the $2 donation. It says, you both have different takes on the Metcalf flag. Oh, goodness. Okay. Got a little disagreement here. What is the take with you on that one, Brendan?
I'm actually kind of surprised here. I don't know if we do. My take on the Metcalf flag was, yeah, it's stupid, but I don't trip about that stuff. I mean, we already talked about the Metcalf stuff. Obviously, it looks bad on camera when you see it. It's like, oh, he was mad he didn't get the ball, so he took it out on Cam Taylor-Britt. Like, that's stupid. And I did call it out because I do think it is, something that he needs to rein in. But I'm not going to sit here and act like that cost us this game or this was why we lost. It's not. There is something very obnoxious about him being upset that he didn't get the ball, and then later in the game he gets the ball and he's not even trying for the ball and it causes an interception. Like that dichotomy of like you're throwing a fit because you didn't get the ball. Well, here's the ball. Oh, you're not even going to go for the ball, and you blew the game because that play ended up being huge in this game. That's way worse than a 15-yard penalty because he got caught up in his feelings a little bit. So I think it's probably it needs to be aimed at the right place, but the penalty itself is like, he needs to knock it off, but I don't feel the need to say much more than that about it.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair take. I when it comes to the not running out your route thing, like you say, especially when you have an earlier moment in the game where you're actively caught there on camera doing the horrible body language move, or diva receiver move, people that have an issue with that, I certainly would say is valid, and that's not right. Like and then you go back and then you don't run through a post route, a route where you early if you watch the route, he had an early win on it. I mean, he's got inside leverage, and it looks to Geno, who's under an onslaught of pressure and doesn't exactly have a lot of time to sit there in the pocket and decide if he's really true or just to like let it rip. And then DK just comes to a stop in the middle of his route. That's kind of an unforgivable sin for a wide receiver. Now, when it comes to the flag, I am going to maintain, and it's a hill I'll die on a little bit with this, because it's what's causing from this kind of flag is this is causing a lot of people to directly take from this flag. Okay, the flag issue. Okay, that's costing us games. Okay, we got to trade DK. I'm seeing a logical thought train going one to the other, to the other, to the other on this one. And it's disconcerting to me because, number one, I think a lot of these flags are him being targeted. Let me read you a quote here. And just because I think that this is somebody that might have an opinion beyond even you, it might have a little bit, I would actually like to see less violations called, focus on the important ones and let some things go. I saw DK Metcalf got penalized for unnecessary roughness. I don't know if that's unnecessary or not, but all I know is that the defenders got every right to push back on DK, but he doesn't do it. So DK throws him to the ground. They throw a flag. I'm like, I don't understand what the flag is. This is football. This isn't touch football. This is real football. I think that the physicality, which people really enjoy, I certainly enjoyed, I don't think we should ever lose that. It's a really important quote I read, got sent by one of my subscribers out there, and that's from Tom Brady. And so you have a guy that's not a Seahawks fan there, who's an offensive player, who's a goated player in this league, watching that same play that so many are starting to clutch their pearls on, saying, no, this is football. And I agree with Tom on this one. I'm going to side with the GOAT on this one, in the respect of that defensive player wanted to not put his hands up and try, and he paid the price for it. And that's how this sport works. You come out there ready to play. You come out there strapping your chin strap on, and you let it rip. And I think the officials are targeting DK. I don't think and the play was still going on when he did it. I don't understand it. I think it's ridiculous, because it's the defender's job to prepare themselves. The Witherspoon thing was the same way, trotting around, not watching, not paying attention to anything, not acting like they're acting like they're on a park stroll. You're on a football field, live action, till the whistle blows. I'm definitely strictly in the camp of that one, where I really am not this bothered by this. It's another one, like you say, where it didn't cost us the game, didn't directly result to it. Much like the Witherspoon hit earlier this year, didn't directly result in us having, in us losing the game because of that situation. It's not a good thing. I'd love to see this stuff get corrected. It's hard when officials start targeting you, because you got to want it. He's got to block, I mean, eventually does he get to the point of now softly trying to block guys because he's worried that there's going to be this thing? Like, do we want to take that out of his game and his play? And I don't really want to, but it is kind of what it is with it. It's disconcerting to me on it, Brendan, just hearing people go from taking that flag or the flags he's had, and that's a reason we should now go trade DK. And you go, wait, what? Huh?
Yeah, I think there is this overwhelming urge in people to say, I don't like this thing, I want to get rid of it. Not I want to fix it, not I want to work with it, not I want to find some way to make my peace with the fact that it's a thing that exists.
Yeah.
And that's a mistake. That's how you end up with a getting rid of more than half your players every single year, never having any congruity between your roster, and you never win anything. There are countless examples of teams and players making it work for a period of time, even when things aren't necessarily perfect, because they have this unified goal of wanting to win. And sometimes it doesn't last forever. But I don't understand the obsession with like, oh, I don't like this thing about this player, I don't want him here anymore, instead of saying, I want this to get fixed, I want this to get better. Because any DK Metcalf trade is not going to give you back good value, because you're going to be paying him so much money. The only way to get equal value would be to get like 2 first-round picks. Nobody's going to do that. So it's not going to be a good trade, and you're probably going to end up drafting a player who, if you're lucky, is 40% as good as DK Metcalf. So, that's not a good solution either. So, yeah, I'm not down with that. I was annoyed with DK after this game for sure. And I think that everybody has a right to be. But I think it's and we're going to talk more about this later in the show, I'm sure. It is possible to be critical of a player without hating that player.
100%. Yeah, and I think as the criticism with it, that he's got to find a way to fight this flag thing, is not a bad criticism to lay. It's just when we start driving that to now, this is why we got to trade him, is the part where I go, and there's people making this jump. People may be out there going, well, who's making that jump? Trust me, I do 6-hour live streams every Sunday. I do multiple shows a week. People are making that jump with DK. I saw it on the flag from Witherspoon, and plenty of takes out there that were saying that. I'm reading them online, and it's disconcerting, because it's like this talk gets so loud, it eventually could lead to, okay, well, we guess the fan base is in a place of not really, it's like, really, we should be valuing the guy, because there is a lot he does bring to the table for these little impediments that are in there that don't actually cost us football games. And it'd be a shame to let go of him for something that just kind of gets on people's nerves a little bit. But you do have a right to, definitely people are in the right stance to say, okay, I'm annoyed with this. It has been a lot. But as Tom Brady said, I think, they're over legislating stuff. And I think he's being a little bit picked on here just a bit, just a tiny bit.
I will say, if that's happening, then something needs to be done about it, right? We can sit here and say, oh, it's not fair that they're picking on him. But if they're picking on him, then they're picking on him. There's nothing you can really do to stop that except to clean it up. And that's going to be what it takes. And we may not love him cleaning it up, because it means he won't be as good of a blocker, and he might not be as into the game as he otherwise would be, maybe even. But it is what it is. And if that's what's going on, then yeah, he's got to clean it up if they're really targeting him, which it seems like they are.
Yeah, I do think it's something he's going to have to be more aware of with it, and probably have to remove less of his ferocity from his blocking style because of it. I think it's a kind of fair way on where to look at this, because that's the way it works sometimes with this stuff. Thank you, though, Feed Me, for that $2 dono. Snail, thank you for the $5 donation. It says, is it a hot take to say Clint Hurt gets a head coaching job before Waldron if this defense follows typical Seahawks defenses and continues to improve?
I feel like the league is pretty clued into the fact that Pete Carroll's running this defense and Clint Hurt has a pretty reduced role in running it. So I don't think so.
I would think not either. The other thing to think about this too is that offensive coaches are the de jour now of the moment. They're a lot easier to get hired than defensive coaches, and nothing this year in the data will tell any of these teams looking for future head coaches this season or in the next upcoming off season that shouldn't be more of a trend that they lean into. It's going to be harder as a defensive minded coach to go out there and get that job. It just is going to be. So I would still say Waldron has probably more of a jump on this. I also, and we're going to talk about this, Snail, when we do get to the offensive side of the ball, I do think Waldron's going to still be very successful this year as an offensive coordinator, and that's still going to keep his star pretty bright for an opportunity potentially it's out there. Not that he's going to be 1, 2, 3 option in the league as far as candidates go, like the Dan Quinn from last year, but that he'll be looked at and considered, I think, this offseason. Once I believe, and this is going to be my bold take this show, Brendan, is I think once the offensive line gets back to a bit better health here, I think the offense is going to find back its ignition switch. Could be wrong on that take, but that is my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, again, like we just said about the defense, when healthy, this offense has too much talent to not be really good. It's just inconceivable. Even if you don't like JSN, which I think that if you do, you're ignoring a lot of advanced statistics that indicate he is doing his job. But even if you don't, you've got you've got one of the best starting receiver duos in the league. You've got 3 quality tight ends, which very few teams have. You've got these running backs. There's too much going on here for it to not be good.
The connection I can't quite see people aren't seeing made is that look at our defense now. As your defense gets to full health and you get back what we might come to find to be the most important player to your defense being Jamal Adams, on top of Witherspoon getting fully up to speed, the combination of those two added into the mix of what you had. And now you're seeing a defense find a top end that we didn't even understand that it had. Yet we can't do that same math to the offensive side of the ball, which is strange to me a little bit, because you go look to the offensive side of the ball, Brendon, and this offensive line, let's make no two mistakes about it here. Let's get this part. And I know we're going to offense in a second, but let's just this part. This offense has been beat up to hell to start this year. This isn't merely an injury here and an injury there. This is that even in this game, Brendon, if I'm not mistaken, you're free to correct me. Let's just take out the guys that are out of this game, which we're down 3/5 basically when we move Phil Haynes to left guard. Phil Haynes is working through an injury. Jay Curran was playing through an injury. Bradford went down in that Carolina Panthers game. I guarantee you that ankle ain't 100% for him over there on the other side either. Cross is just coming back with all of his rust. Brown, I know, has gotten up about 4 or 5 different times this year, real slow. I know that, guys. He was out for a few times. He's had a couple moments he's been out for Olawatimi to come in there for him. Now, every offensive line in the league's beat up, but when you have an offensive line, Brendon, correct me if I'm wrong, down this many starters, and it's beat up in addition to that with the backups in there, do we have an expectation that offensive line is going to help that offense to flourish in any way, shape, or form? And are any offense going to flourish outside of a Joe Burrow offense in the league?
Yeah. Big picture, what this team has managed to accomplish in these first 5 games with this offensive line is kind of amazing. Putting up 37 points 31 points, let's say, against the Lions, putting up 37 points on the Panthers. Like that, those two results are kind of remarkable. Now, there have been some bad games in there too, but again, like you lose your 2 starting tackles in the middle of a game. For any team out there, I don't know what any of those teams are going to do, but I don't think it's going to be anything good. It's not.
Yeah.
And I do think that what we've seen over the last 2 games is kind of like we're pushing it a little too much. Like there's only so much we can get out of these backup offensive linemen before bad things start to happen. And I think that is kind of what we've been seeing over the last 2 games. But even within those 2 games, there's still been some pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't want people to lose track of that. I'm seeing a lot of people. There are a lot of people out there who are looking at this in a very binary fashion. They just look at how many points the Seahawks offense scored in each game, and they're like, oh, we were bad in this game. We were good in this game. We were good in this game. We were bad in this game. We were bad in this game. And then that's just the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
Like there needs to be some understanding here that this is probably the most injured offensive line in the entire NFL through the first 6 weeks of the season.
Agreed.
And they found ways around it to still be a top 10 offense.
If I asked any Seahawks fan, not just you, Brendon, to your point on this, any Seahawks fan out there at the start of the year, and I said, okay, we're going to get through the first 5 games of the season. Be with me on this. Okay. We're going to be without our starting 2 tackles for minus the first 2 quarters of the first game. And then you'll get them back at the final 5th game there. You'll finally get one of them back. You're going to be down 3/5, 4/5, 5/5 of your offensive linemen over the course of those runs of those opening games. What would you put the record at for the team? Where would you have had them in general? Just knowing that, I know there's more that's absent a lot of other information like how the defense is playing and other injuries across the board. But in general terms, if you were just to hear that on the face and the surface of it, where would you probably put the team at?
I mean, honestly, that sounds like a recipe for 0-5 or 1-4. The offense was supposed to be the seat of our power. And if you're telling me, oh, you're not going to have that because the whole offensive line got hurt, I'm going to be thinking like, I don't know how we win a game. We were depending on the offense for so much this year.
That's my take on it too. I would say 1 win is about as high as I'd say you're going to get out of it. Maybe you get luck through on 1 win of it, but I don't think, and you and I have been consistent on this. We talk a lot about this on prospects and quarterbacks and rookie quarterbacks going to certain spots and how they're going to look to perform. I've been on this for a couple of years as a trip, Brendon, which is that your offensive line is going to dictate a lot of your success as a quarterback. And if it's really great, you can really fly. If it's good, you can still do pretty good. But if it's in shambles, if it's broken down, you as a quarterback are going to be affected by that. And maybe there's a couple rare quarterbacks in the sport that can overcome that, but most can't. And the standard should not be with Geno Smith that he's got to overcome this with our expectation level. If it is in shambles, that he's got to be out there and a superstar at that point. I think that that's unrealistic. And he didn't play good ball game this last Sunday, Brendon. But I do think it's a little unrealistic of a standard to hold to expect him to do that. And you're right about it getting worse, especially as these guys who are the backups coming in there. This isn't a healthy Anthony Bradford, isn't a healthy Jay Curhan. These are guys who are fighting through their injuries. They're not. It's that thing that the coaches say: Are you injured? Are you hurt? Right? They're
Right.
not hurt, but yeah, they're fighting through an injury, and you're not going to perform at your best fighting through injury. Not to mention you are also a backup. In Bradford's case, you got a lot of rawness. You can run block like a maven, but you're not going to pass protect all that well. So
Yeah. I expected nothing but disaster when Bradford had to play this year, and so far it hasn't been. Like the worst thing he's done is commit 2 penalties against the Giants.
Yeah, agreed. I think he's been absolutely beyond what I thought he was going to be. You and I looked at him on the tape. It was raw, especially pass protection. LSU, I mean, Jaden Daniels was running for his life a lot of times last year because Bradford just got he whiffed on blocks in pass pro all the time throughout his tape. So this has gotten a little bit worse with time as the injuries have mounted, as you've needed to call upon that depth more. But I do have faith, Brendon, it's going to return once we get back turned into the other direction with some of these injuries. Lucas comes back, especially. You give me a cross back in his flow, Lucas back in there alone, and I think we're going to see a substantial uptick in the amount of production we get out of this offense. Kasara Salari, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, I hate how fast Seahawks fans panic. We will be okay. Yeah, it's. I think that there's just this definitely one to me, Brendon, just caught certain fans to me just certain sideways, and you saw some people go real hard in that direction of just, I don't know if panic's the word, or maybe that's the best word to use, but it just felt like people were a little in up in arms out of this game in a way you or I don't seem to be able to quite understand fully. I was definitely way more the Rams game apocalyptic.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it is, and this is where I can kind of understand it. The NFL in the modern day, I think, is all about inconsistency. Teams are not consistent from week to week.
Yeah.
There's no element of football where very few teams manage to keep up a high level of play, or sometimes a low level of play, from week to week. So when you play that well on defense, you need to win that game, because you don't know, like, your defense might be good the rest of the year, but are they going to be that good ever again this year? I doubt it. I don't think this defense is going to play a better game than what they did against the Bengals, because I'm going to keep saying it. That is a very good and very dangerous offense. And you went on the road and they basically did nothing after the scripted plays were done.
Yeah.
Like, those first, what was it, 15, 20 plays now they script these days.
Right. Oh, yeah.
When I say scripted, people think something else. So rehearsed plays.
That's right. And if offenses usually have the first 15, 20 plays totally practiced out, but they're more refined than the back end, let's say 20 plays, which are a little bit more, here's our playbook. We practiced this back in week 3 of training camp or something.
So I can understand the anger and frustration with losing that game. Because when you play that well on defense and you still lose, it's just like, oh, that is such a blown opportunity. And I felt that too. I felt that way too. I totally get that. But I think there is this push to try to ascribe some higher meaning to what happened in that game. Yeah. And I think that's the mistake. I think that's the error that people are making.
Yeah, agreed. And well said. I don't have a lot to add on to that. That's well said, man. This is a game just about, it's one game off. It ain't the tail of the season or the tail of any individual player for this year. Thank you though, Kazra, for that donation. I appreciate you. Garth Knight with a $5 donation. Thank you as well. Garth says the guys, the defense is getting better earlier than in years past. I hope they put Spoon Man in the slot, because if a cat can hit you, you got to let him.
I mean, when there's a slot to be put on the field, I think Spoon is the guy on this team to put there right now.
Yeah, I like the thought process of doing it like somebody described Chris Harris back in the no-fly zone days with the Broncos winning a Super Bowl. That defense, of course, not Peyton Manning, but that defense, what got them that Super Bowl win. And they had Chris Harris aligned in the slot when you got your three wide. And then when you went to a base look situation, you put him out there as your starting cornerback opposite Woolen. And I like that look and setup with Spoon here. There's a lot of flex you can do in this too, Brendan, because of course they bringing Jamal down and putting him in the slot at times, and now sometimes you can maybe then just keep kicking Spoon out then outside on those rare snaps. Love's in the mix on this too. A lot of different versatile guys here on this, Brendan, that we can kind of move all over the place a little bit. But I that's really it with me, Garth. I mean, I was down on this game. I understand, like you say, Brendan, for people just being like, man, that's brutal. We had that one in our hands. It was this close. But I'm so much more overridden by the defensive performance and realizing that this defensive potential is within them. Maybe they're not going to replicate this same performance, but that it's at least this potential is in them. Whereas we didn't kind of know, especially coming off the Rams game and some of these other games with the 30 points to Goff, 30 points to Dalton, and you go, okay, are we soft zone city and just more assets that are just being poured to nothing that we're still not getting in return? But instead now, like you said, our expectations have gone from our best case scenario is middle of the road to, I'm not saying they're going to get to an elite state, but now they've got to me, a more of an open door of getting up into a higher place of their performance this year. And that makes us that much more dangerous as a team.
Right.
Thank you though, Garth. Appreciate it. Connor Oswagler, thank you for the $5 donation. He says, I actually thought Woolen had an underrated game. He got beat a few times, but he was isolated 1v1 with Chase a lot of this game and held up well.
Yeah. If there's anybody to single out on defense, it's probably in the negative. It's probably him. But after having a chance to look at that game in a little depth, I don't think it was that bad. I think everything, when you really actually think it through and you look at it really closely, it's like, okay, the one touchdown he was in cover 3, the other touchdown Burrow was in this pocket for like 8 minutes, running around in the backfield
creating
for 8
time.
minutes.
Yeah. Making it hard in the secondary.
Right.
Yeah.
So and then there was the one deep ball where he gave it up, but Chase kind of got away with one of his trademark push-offs.
Yeah.
So a big picture wise, it's really not that bad. And I think that some people are going to run with it a little more than it needs to be run with. It's not that big of a deal.
That's another, we were talking about before we started the show. That was another one of the hot takes I was getting off the game from some of my chat. Well, one really isn't that good. Last year was just an outlier, smoke and mirrors kind of thing. It's not really who he is. I'm like, no, I think he's really that good. And Connor, I think that's a fair take. He probably had a little bit of a tough start to the game. Wasn't horrible, but then I think he got better as the game went along. And Brendan, part of the shortening of the routes and the tightening and the aggressiveness we talked about in defense that I saw from Woolen that I really liked in this game was when he was up there in press. And I know, hold on now, I would hold your breath on this one. They actually let him press. I was like, yeah, here we go. He got those big long arms right up into Chase's chest and just brought him to a standstill. Burrow and Burrow's completely in that timing-based anticipatory route that he likes to flow in, and he drops back looking for his man Chase to be in the flow of the route, and he's not. He's still just getting off the line of scrimmage. And I saw a few times of that with Woolen in this game. It gets me jacked because, again, we start to see where the coaching staff goes, okay, Carroll, from Carroll's standpoint, okay, I haven't been doing this recently, but man, we're doing this well with these guys. And this is kind of what their skill set leans into having them do. And we're getting success off of it. And the more we do it, the more success we're getting from it. Maybe we'll lean even more into this, but I love that with him up there as opposed to letting Burrow have 7 yards of off coverage and drop to cover 3 depth post snap every play,
Yeah. We talked about it this whole offseason, right? We talked about how it makes sense for this to happen. But we weren't sure if it was going to happen just because you assembled all the players to do this kind of defense, this aggressive man coverage. Doesn't mean we were going to do it. And at first it looked like, I guess we're just not going to do it. And no, we just needed to get all the right guys on the field.
That's right.
And if the team goes back to the old stuff at some point later this year, then that would be, it would be so strange after having these really good results with it. So hard for me to believe that's going to happen. It wouldn't make any sense.
It wouldn't, especially because this adds up why this change has occurred over these last 2 games. It's arrived with Witherspoon getting fully acclimated after missing the first week of the season and now fully up to speed and knowing the role you want to put him in and having Jamal Adams also back there. And that, with all the guys that you still have in as far as pretty good health up front on that defense, allows the full picture to come together at that point as far as the plan is concerned. Now, you lose Adams and you slide back with Love back there. Maybe it's a little bit more back into that, okay, this is going to be hold on city a bit, but you got him right now. And right now, at least the upside looks good for this defense. I'm really stoked for it. It overrode anything as bad as loss was, man, to know that this is what we're going to carry going forward. It's kind of defense to me that can kind of maybe have a little bit better chance of standing toe to toe with the Niners coming later on this year.
Yeah. I mean, did you see the stat from the Browns game?
The man coverage stuff?
Yeah, how often they ran man and how bad Purdy was against it.
Yeah, that's Brendan's referencing a stat of, so if many are, to Brendan's point, I'm glad you brought this up. Remember, many are probably wondering, okay, what did the Browns do to the Niners? Because Browns had a backup quarterback, no Deshaun Watson in that game. How did they beat him? And okay, the Niners lost a couple guys. That looks like it on the surface of it. McCaffrey goes down, Trent Williams rolls his ankle, and Debo has his thing go on. But it's what you talked about. Say that again, because I think I want to make sure people remember this when we end up playing them. This is a very important stat that stands out above all else, the injuries and anything else, with what the Browns did.
Yeah, the Browns ran man coverage on about 70% of their coverage snaps, and Purdy against man coverage was something like 6 for 17, if I recall correctly.
So there you go. And I'd reckon to guess that there was a good amount of pressure-based looks that they ran off that man, Brendan. I got to look at the tape myself, and we'll probably be reviewing it when we lead up to the Niner game just to see exactly what they did. But I guess there's a lot more stack fronts they brought on Purdy as well and squeezed that pocket a little bit. But, I mean, how can you not look at that stat if you're the Seahawks coming into that game? You go, okay, we got to drop a lot of zone this game. No, right. Go man, get the man out. You know what I mean? Get him out.
Mm-hmm.
So great stat, Brendan.
Yep.
Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, Brando won me over on that Tom Brady 12 quote. With me, it comes down to context. We see reviews of DK crushing some guy without the context of it being a live play. Yeah, it becomes this little shot where they squeeze in on the shot. You can't see the rest of what's going on in the field. And then it just looks completely awful. Like he's just going and basically, sideswiping a guy. And, it's like, it's not how that exactly played out, in my opinion.
Well, it's like the Hines Ward rule, right? The blindside block. Is that what they got him for?
No, he was just being too mean. It's literally just, it wasn't even blocking late. It was just unsportsmanlike because he knocked him on his butt. And the thing with me on that is that DK even tries on that play to avoid the Hines Ward situation like you talk about. Because if you watch the replay, he comes up, gives the cornerback a little tap on the shoulder, like, okay, wake up. I'm here. It's the guy's got to catch behind me. He's still on his feet with the ball. So now you need to get your hands up and engage with me here. Because remember, the ball is being thrown to his side of the field there. If DK's here, it's to the left side of the field. The ball's being thrown to the left side of the field, albeit it's 20 yards back. But DK, as far as he understands it in that moment, is in the line of the play. If the guy breaks free and gets loose, DK's guys, he's got to get his block laid to free that up for a potential score. So he comes up and he doesn't just merely Witherspoon him, right? Because that was what he did with Witherspoon, is he just came up around him, Brendan just completely knocked him on his butt. This one, though, he actually comes up and goes, and that's what Tom was saying, Tom Brady was saying, and how he saw it. He comes up and says, okay, it's here. We're engaged. Let's go. Not a hard hit. His first hit was just kind of a little soft chuck into the shoulder where he goes, wake up. It's time. And the guy instead was like, I don't want to fight you. That's what he did. That's basically what the corner was like, I don't want to do that. I just want to let him in. Shut up, come on. That's DK's fault that he pushes out. I'm like, nah, the guy needs to understand he's playing football. This ain't touch.
Yeah, I can see it from that angle for sure.
Appreciate you though, Garth. Glad I won you over there on the DK thing, man. Got another one here from Garth as well. Thanks for all the triple dono dip there, Garth. Since it's hard for lay people like myself to discern the skill differences amongst the O-line and anything other than size and effort. I rely on you cats. Well, yeah, man. That's as well. You should. We look at the stuff deeply in that way to try to get some discernment on it. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I feel like for years, NFL fans weren't really able to figure out which offensive linemen were good. And PFF came along and they're trying to be the official source of, whether or not an offensive lineman is playing at what level they're playing at. But that's like all we have, because the box score stats are not really going to do anything to shed light there, right?
It's
It,
true.
it it was, for a long time, it was just like media reputation. The talking heads would say this guy was great, and everybody would be like, "Oh, okay, I guess that guy's great."
It's true. No, it's very true. There is no real stat to lean on. Like you say, PFF has become kind of the stat. I think it becomes clear at times, like it was this last Sunday, when you get that, quick pressure rate coming from the Bengals. Not merely just, and there were points that, and we'll get the offense here soon, but there were points obviously where Geno was holding, but there was also points where the pressure was just right off the jump, right off the snap. And that's where it is easy to see, like, oh, Curran's not moving his feet. Oh, Bradford got, stuck on there. But I mean, you look at the grades coming out of this game from a pass blocking standpoint. Phil Haynes posts a 31 grade. Jay Cran posts a 41 grade. Evan Brown gets himself up to 72, so at least he was decent. But Cross was 63, and then Bradford was 60. So, outside of your center, nobody was really doing NFL average work out there on the offensive line in the pass protection game.
I think the Cross going up against Hendrickson, I can't really get mad at him for that one. I think he held his own.
Completely.
When I was looking at all that, I think the issue really is you had multiple pressures being allowed by every offensive lineman.
Yeah.
So so it felt like everybody was kind of getting beat up in pass protection. Everybody gave up at least 2. I think Curhan led the team with 7, but everyone had at least 2. And when that happens, it's like there's nowhere to run. Step up in the pocket. Oh, I can't step up in the pocket. There's pressure there too. Roll out this way. No, there's pressure that way too. Like, it would be different if it was like if Curhan's getting whipped every other play and everyone else is holding up. There are ways to work around that.
Right.
Right.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, I was hearing some folks talking about him stepping up in the pocket, and watching. I'm prepping for a show tomorrow, Brendan, looking at the all 22 tape of the shots over the top. And to your point, you have the edges crushing inside, and they're like coming in as a tandem there to kind of close that up. And then you look at the front of the pocket, you got DJ Reader beating his man up in front of him. So it's like if Geno steps up in the pocket, he's just going right up into the waiting arms of DJ Reader. And there was a lot of those snaps like that in this game that you would see and go, yeah, it's hard for a quarterback to know where there's some daylight to go to. He doesn't have a Trent Williams on this line where he's like, well, I always know the left side's going to be clear, and I can get out of here from that method if I got to get out. There wasn't a lot of escape routes in that pocket this past week.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you, Garth. I do appreciate your donations. Snail coming with another donation as well. Thank you, Snail, for the double dip. It says Jerry Judy, 20 receptions on 29 targets for 222 yards. JSN, 16 receptions on 25 targets for 110 yards. Bob Bobosaurus, 4 receptions on 6 targets for 51 yards and 1 touchdown. More Bobosaurus. Boy, the legend just continues to grow with this kid, doesn't it? It's kind of wild. What do you make of this Bobo performances? This kid something real? Are we getting just he's right place, right man, right time, or do we have a guy that's something here that we've got to work with into this future that we need to start putting in better consideration in that respect of things?
I mean, I think it's pretty real. I think it's pretty. I don't think he'll ever make the Pro Bowl or anything like that, but he's a valuable player in this league, and for a guy you got as a UDFA, that's all you can ask for, right? Like, when you compare him to somebody like Jermaine Kearse, it feels like Bobo's going to be more impactful a player than Jermaine Kearse was.
It does.
And if you manage that would be a pretty incredible career for a UDFA.
It really would. I think he's just, there is a little bit of something there to him, and the opportunities he gets, he makes the most of them. That's what you can say about him. On top of the run blocking and finding a role there, when he's throwing the ball by Geno, he's going to make that catch. And I mean, that was the one catch he caught, and then still was like, no, I'm not just going to go down. That's not good enough. I'm going to get 10 yards after the catch. And the other one where he went up and got head slammed and still just got right back up, tough as hell, and said, here we go. And man, does he look like Joe Jurvicious a lot of times out there. Like that play right there was like, that was straight Joe Jurvicious, that catch on that kind of throw there. When he did get whacked, Joe was super tough as well. But I love what I'm seeing from Bobo, man. It's just hard. Can you take JSN off the field and say, I got to put Bobo out there instead? I mean, can you as a coaching staff? And I think some of the issues in this game offensively, Brendan, were born out of trying to get JSN a little bit more featured, I think. But I don't know if you can do that. I think you still got to find kind of a role for each of these two guys in the offense. And, let Bobo kind of find his footing where it may be.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, Bobo's main value, even though he has made some catches now, his main value is as a run blocker.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that you can find ways to get him on the field in circumstances where he can help in that area without taking away from what JSN can do, because JSN's not a blocker. That's never his game. Like, now, you don't want it to become something like a pre-snap tell, but there's definitely a way to make this work. It shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah. Well, and especially when you're actually getting them catches in this game. I mean, they can't go to the table and go, well, we just know Bobo comes in. They're not going to try to throw at him, or they're not going to try to pass. Well, they did in this past game of the Bengals, to your point. So there's a little bit of already kind of maybe taking advantage of that. Maybe some teams trying to make that read that, oh, Bobo's on the field, it's going to be a run play now. But as we always say with these kind of issues, Brendan, it's a great problem to have, is it not? You got Eskridge coming back too, and I mean, I don't even know what they're going to do with that guy. I mean, he's just going to be sitting there on the bench, I think. Maybe our kick returner or something.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he's even here.
Ooh, they start releasing him?
I'm wondering.
It does come down to him, Tariq Young. It does kind of come down to those two a bit.
And I want Tariq Young. Tariq Young does some of that stuff where he lines up at fullback. Tariq Young has special teams value that I don't know if Eskridge has. I'm taking Tariq over Eskridge all day.
Got another year of cheap club control on Tariq Young too that you don't necessarily have on Eskridge. To your point, it does make it. I mean, I can't really push back on you on an argument on that, really, to be honest with you. I mean, he's a better blocker. He's got more size. He can play inside and outside. He's going to offer you more ability on special teams, I think, than Tariq Young, than Eskridge. Eskridge isn't going to go down there as a gunner, and like, he got injured this year in that. Remember the first play of the game, first play of the year, he got injured.
I remember that
this year on the kickoff, trying to do the kickoff stuff. So he obviously, the guy can't do that either. I think you're probably right here.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think of when, remember Darko on the Pistons,
Mm-hmm.
Darko Milicic? Like, he just couldn't do anything right on any level when he was with them. Like, they let him in. I'll never forget this. They let Darko in the game in garbage time in the Game 5 of the NBA Finals. And he starts bleeding all over the court because his earring came out, and he got his ears pierced and it wasn't right. So he just starts bleeding all over the court. Like, he can't even do that right. Like, that's where we're getting with Eskridge. He gets hurt. He doesn't make plays. He doesn't get open. He's doing stupid stuff off the field that's getting him suspended. Like, there's just nothing going right anymore. Like, what are we clinging on to here?
Yeah, it's a good point. And at the very least, maybe you just at least try to throw him on the practice squad. And if somebody wants to take him, you're like, man, enjoy, good luck with that. If you can do that, I don't know. It's probably not even a possibility, but the team has at least said, dude, despite what me and Brendan have said on this, of course, this was also prior to Bobo's emergence. So I don't know if maybe that starts to affect this a little bit more. And the team loves Tariq Young too. It's going to be a interesting decision on their part when Eskridge comes off of his suspension to see what they do, Brendan. But I can't argue with your logic on it, man. Snail, thank you for that donation. Big Patty Daddy, thank you for the $5 donation as well. Says Brendan bought an HQ webcam today. Getting started on casual Seahawks YouTube content tomorrow. Hope to meet you boys soon. Brendan,
that's pretty cool.
So he's saying bought an HQ webcam. So he's saying like I bought an HQ.
Yes. Okay. I don't think he's talking about me.
That's awesome, Big Patty Daddy. I love it, man. You're gonna just get into it and go, and just content, man. Create, and it'll go good for you. It's thing that I mainly see. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I would recommend, and one thing that I'm starting to do myself, is like diversify across multiple platforms. Like, I'm actually getting started on starting to post my stuff on Facebook. Probably going to go ahead and make a Rumble account soon. Twitter lets you post videos and do streams on it now. Like, my initial impression was you're just stealing from your own viewer base, but I actually am starting to think, no, the people who watch on one site are different than the people who watch on other sites.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. I think that's a great point on Brendan's part, is that the more places you can post early on, the better, especially as you create that as your standard. And it does help. It does nothing but help you, especially beyond just the overall viewership and potential of having a little bit of diversified places you're monetized. Having lost my train of thought on that, but Oh, it's good for the SEO stuff because stuff that you're doing on Facebook, Twitters, and all that stuff goes back to your YouTube channel. That's going to help you with search engine optimization. So it helps on a couple different levels with that, my man. But good to hear, Big Patty. Get it, brother. Get it. And thank you for that donation. Garth with another dono from Garth here. Thank you, Garth Knight, for the fifth dono tonight. Appreciate you, man. Says Brando, I won a few dollars on your parlay recommendations for Monday Night Football. Yes. If possible, could you break down future recommendations from 1 to 5? Cool either way. For sure. So, if possible, could you break down future recommendations from 1 to number 5? Cool either way. I think you mean about the future parlays for this week, Garth. So tomorrow I will do I'll do a deal on Garth. I'll do it on the show tomorrow for my picks for this week because I haven't had a chance to quite look at them yet. But I'll put my picks in for this week on the channel tomorrow. We're going to be doing a 5 o'clock show. And I'll also post it down in the comments, Garth, so you don't have to hunt and peck for it in the video itself. I'll post it down in like a pinned comment below the video. So, but yes, I will 100% get you the picks. And how about that, man? You got to win on that. I love playing it. Unfortunately, you're kind of restricted, Brendan, in Washington because the Big Brother thing from being able to do that stuff. But man, it's a lot of fun.
I know.
It's a lot of fun. I like it way better than the doing the line betting and stuff. When you can go to players and try to actually, I think this guy's going to be above this or below this on this against this team. It feels a little bit more skill based, I guess.
Yeah, I like both. I like both sides of it. I like sports betting. It's just not something I get to do that often because Washington State and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I haven't really gotten to like the whole DraftKings thing yet, or even this stuff. I did go down to I think it's Emerald Queens. Oh no, it's Emerald Downs started doing a sports book not too far from where I live. I actually did go there for their grand opening.
Nice. Hell yeah. No, that's the one place you can do some of these apps too, is if you're in a casino and you're on their network, they have like a Faraday cage of the betting that you're allowed in the state. So hopefully they eventually raise that. I mean, even California has it opened up. And it's like, really? California, we're more locked down than Cali on this. So
yeah, that's not right.
That's not right. Come on. That's not good, but it's a lot of fun. It adds a lot of, especially when watching Red Zone, Brendan, and you got like early runs on stuff, and I'm watching Red Zone and it's like you're checking to see if a guy's going to get 50 yards rushing or whatever. And it just makes it even more kind of action packed.
Yeah. Do you have like a gambling story, like a big, like a win that you had at some point in your life that like you really remember as being like, wow, that felt good?
Well, I got a $400 winner this year so far. That one felt pretty good. I've not been a big gambler in my past. I'm not a big guy doing that stuff too much, so I've not thrown a lot of money on the felt, So I've been pretty, because I'm one of those guys. When it comes especially going to like Vegas or doing like the casino gambling, I'm a true believer. You got kind of the luck gene or you don't. I don't know if you've known people in your life that like they walk past the front of a casino and dollar bills start adding to, and other people that go in there and they could pour money in all day and they're not going to get a single dollar back. And I'm usually been one of the latter myself, so I tend to avoid it.
I used to do sports betting with Bitcoin back like 4 years ago. I did it a lot, actually. There was a site that I used, and my all-time big hit was the Warriors Raptors NBA Finals.
Okay.
Because the Warriors were heavy favorites, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. You guys know that Katie's Achilles is about to pop, right? And I just loaded up. That was the big one.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, that's where you can kind of target it on stuff that's a little more like less of you just sort of rolling the dice. More, I put this 2 and 2 together on this, and I know that this is going to go that way. What was your win on it?
Well, it was Bitcoin, so obviously it fluctuates pretty wildly, but it was a few grand.
Oh,
like I was just like, this is a winner right here. Like, because you knew that if the Raptors won the finals, Kawhi was going to be finals MVP. There was no scenario where any other player on that team had a chance. So instead of just betting on the Raptors to win the series at like plus 170, you could just bet on Kawhi to win finals MVP, which was like plus 210. And you get more value out of it. And then you can tie those two things together because if one happens, the other happened too. And it's just like free vig almost, it felt like.
Yeah. Well, there's sometimes those ones that come down that they miss between the cracks on it, and they usually have it pretty well slotted down to the yard. But
Yeah.
it's I had one this year. I had 4 of my 5s come through, and then the 5th one was Pachenko, and I needed him to get over 57 yards, and he got 55. It's just brutal.
Yeah,
That
those
one hurt.
happen. I remember all the bets I used to. I remember all the bets I used to lose, where like there would in basketball teams would be fouling each other at the end of time at the end of the game. Like there's 10 seconds left, one team's up by 18, and the other team just keeps fouling like they think they're going to win, and then
Yeah.
you lose because of that. And it's just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I've had those happen too. Yeah, it's a bad beats. That's what they call that, a bad beat on that.
Right.
But Garth, yeah, for sure. Tomorrow I will have your picks ready for you, and just check in the comment section if you're not on the stream. But I'll get those posted for sure, bro. Glad I would get you a couple ducats on that one. Glad we were good on that. Concierge with Nolan is coming correct, coming hard, and bringing the ... dollar bills. He comes in with a massive $50 donation drop. Mr. Nolan, I'm sorry, a little 10 minutes late and kind of fully acknowledging this, so my bad, brother. But thank you for the $50 donation on your part. You are awesome for doing that, man. Appreciate the support very much. It says early on, Chase went from the slot, get between Adams and Bobby. Blood was shooting from my eyes. It'll be amazing to see Pete trust his athletes one-on-one to lock down the receivers and not just have predictable windows to throw into. Not only a great donation, but some awesome thoughts as well on that one. And
yeah,
go ahead.
I think it's been said that when Chase was covered by Spoon, he had like 1 catch for 3 yards.
Yeah. Spoon was absolutely locking him up from that inside. And when he was on the outside with Tariq had him handled, in there. It's the place I've said with Pete that you talk about Pete and having and look, he wants to coach into the far future. And we're hearing reports that maybe Jody's not going to intend to sell to maybe 2025 at the earliest, which means probably 2027, which means Pete's here for a while. And so we want Pete to get better. We want Pete to improve the things that might not be good, keep the things that are good in his coaching repertoire. And that's what he's kind of doing here a little bit. The offense, though it struggled last couple of weeks, I think finds its footing because they've modernized it. We're now seeing before our very eyes the modernization of this defense. We're seeing a willing to be multiple up front, a willingness to squeeze down on the zone coverages and not just sit back into the soft zone coverages, a willingness to play press coverage on the outside. These things all kind of go differently from what we were running in, let's say, 2018 defensively in our structure. And it's not that it's wholly everything's been thrown out, but it's just that they've adapted and started to evolve in a way I think that they not only needed to do so, Brendan, but also takes advantage of the personnel in the best of ways. And for Pete to make this adjustment at his age and to do it, especially going so opposite who he is and what he wants to do in his background coaching and playing coverages and the fronts, is a testament to being willing to change on his part. And I think that's going to help to make this defense that much better, his willingness to change. That's what we've been harping on, Brendan. You and I have been saying he can find this gear. He's just got to be willing to change. He's just got to be willing to sit there and go, okay, I recognize here at the combine, we've been arrogant, got to change. Now I got to go do it. Now I got to show you guys it. I've shown you I recognize it. Now I got to do it. And once you do it, you can find a potential another gear to your coaching career. You cannot be the guy that's looking like Belichick out there in New England where it's like, oh, about ready to be pasture. No. They go, oh, no, still running strong as ever. Still, it was never about Pete's age. It was about the age thinking and the aged approach in certain aspects that was holding the team back.
Right. And also another element to that I don't want to get past is that now that he's doing it, the players need to deliver. Also, I think that's an important aspect as well. It's like when in 2020, when Pete was really letting Russ cook, we were throwing the ball a lot. We were throwing the ball on early downs a lot. And for about 6 weeks, it went really well. And then it stopped working. Russell had a couple of bad games. The offense stopped scoring. And Pete pulled the plug and never put it back in again. And that made Russ really mad. And I can understand why he would be mad. But if you allow things to go badly with if you allow things to go badly when the coach starts doing the things that you want him to do, he's just going to go back to the old stuff. So it's also now on the players to continue to perform here.
It's well said. Guys getting beat one-on-one, or you're giving up huge shots over the top. You're going to get him driving right back in that range, like you said, like he did where he saddled up Russell that year and went, okay, no more cooking. And that's where I get to that spot. That's maybe more of the theme of the show, where there's people that are more in disarray, to where we're more encouraged because he's doing this and the players are rewarding him for doing that. They're saying, yeah, you can trust me out here, coach. I'm going to hold up over this game. I'm not going to fail out on this. This is my bag. But Adams, I'm in my bag. I can do this, coach. We got this. Give us the chance to let it run and you'll see it work. And they're taking those steps in that direction, which is only going to more solidify it in place. And if it does that, I think that brings with it the raising of this defense to potentially from going from, in my eyes, being a defense that it's top of top in this offseason, looking at like the best of the best they could get to, in my eyes, and how I see it as top 15. But this is a defense now that can climb up into the top 10 state of things, in my opinion, if they can continue to lean in this direction.
Yeah, and I mean, you look around the league, like who are the best defenses? It was Buffalo, but Buffalo's got all these injuries now. I don't think they're going to be at that level going forward. I think Dallas kind of got exposed against San Francisco to the point where it's going to be really hard for me to take them seriously again this year.
Mm-hmm.
And Diggs is out the year. Parsons has a knee injury, I think, too, that he's playing through. So there's some stuff going on there. Like you look around the league trying to find the really good defenses. You won't find a lot. Like Kansas City has genuinely one of the best defenses in the league so far this year. That's how bad it is.
It's true. It's true. There isn't as many good ones out there. It is more about the offensive driven, league on it. And I'd probably you got, Ravens, Browns. There's a couple, there's more than a few teams that I think that will be solidly ahead of us, no matter how I don't think we're getting a special state this year, but I don't think they have to be for us to get to a contender state. If the offense gets back to right, which I think they will, and with the special teams playing as well as they have, Brendon, I think that if this got to a top 10 state offensively, defensively, you are absolutely a contender, at that point. But Nolan, it was good to see they didn't just stick Adams and Bobby on Jamar Chase throughout the game. To your point on that donation, is just that would have been horrible to have sit those guys on and allow the Bengals to target those guys. And quite frankly, in recent years, that would have been what you would have allowed your defense to be targeted in that fashion. You would have let the Bengals dictate it to you. You would have let their best offensive player, absent Joe Burrow, beat you. But in this game, instead, you tightened the coverage up. You went man on man. You locked it down. Let's keep it going on into the future, Nolan. Love your thoughts on it, man, but appreciate the donation as well. That is very, very kind of you, brother. Very kind.
Thank you very much, Nolan.
Chris Oys, thank you for the 12. I'm going to call it $12 because I don't know that symbol, but we're going to call it $12. Thank you, Chris. He says, I know it's early, but are you guys worried about the Browns and Ravens defensive line looking at our current O-line situation? Also, just want to say a big thanks for all the Seahawks content, BNB. Our pleasure on that one. On the last part, no doubt about it. We love what we do. Are we concerned with those two teams?
I mean, I'm kind of concerned about pretty much any defensive line until we start getting some of these guys back. But, thinking about it, Damian Lewis started practicing a little bit last week. So I'd say the odds are good that he's going to be back for this next game. So I think we're going to get D-Lou back. And we've talked a little bit this year about how Damian Lewis isn't really isn't a run blocker anymore. He's become a pass blocker. But after looking at the way that Bengals game went, maybe we underestimated how much of a positive impact he can have on this run blocking. Maybe it's a little more than we thought. So I think getting Damian Lewis back is going to help. That's going to normalize things because I don't know what happened, but Phil Haynes can't play on the left side anymore. Like he's completely forgotten how to do it. And I guess he's just a right guard now because he was actually playing really well over there for the most part.
I'm surprised, especially I would have understood Brendon in this game if Haynes wasn't able to get any holes open because it's not his forte. And I've never really thought that's who he is, which is part of the oddity of him moving to right guard when they did with him. But the fact that he fell apart so thoroughly in this game in pass protection and his PFF grade, which I think had him as the worst pass protector in this game, absolutely was well earned in this one, going back and looking at the tape. DJ Reader just completely gave him his lunch. And Reader's one of the better defensive tackle 3 techs you'll find in the league, no doubt about that. But wow, it was disappointing to watch him do that. I think too with this, you'll have Lucas, I would believe. I know there's a little bit of uncertainty about when exactly he's going to come back at this point. But yeah. That certainly is going to be a big part of this. If you don't have Lucas and you're going against the Browns and the Ravens line, that means they're going to line Myles Garrett up against Jake Curhan all day. And good luck, Jake. Yeah, good luck there. And Clowney's playing well for the Ravens. They've got a good pass rush, good defense out there too. So I think that you're right, Chris, to be worried by those two games. I think those are going to be two hard fought games simply because the defenses that they're bringing to bear on the other side of the football. And I think the only thing I can say to give you some encouragement or some hope for it is to say, as Brendan's kind of intimating with Damian Lewis's return, that the offensive line needs to get healthier. When we play those teams, we can't run out what we've been running out currently, because I don't think the offense is going to flourish if you're running out Haynes at left guard and Bradford at right guard and Curhan at right tackle against those two teams. I think that's probably 2 losses for us at that point.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably accurate. We've shown that there are things you can do to mitigate having a guy like Jay Curhan out there. Maybe we didn't do enough of those things on Sunday. It's hard to do those things when everybody else is not doing that well either. Like you do need somebody on the offensive line to be doing their job at a high level, so that way you can afford to help other players.
Yeah, agreed.
So the fact that we just didn't really get high level pass protection from anybody made that hard. Maybe there's a lot of debate going on these last few days. I'm sure you're aware of it, of trying to divvy out blame for the pass protection between Geno, the offensive line, and Waldron. Just trying to figure out, untangle it and figure out who the culprit is. I don't think it's that simple, but there may have been a little bit of overzealousness in the scheme and the play calling, in terms of thinking like, oh, Charles Cross is back, I don't need to put my tight ends out there anymore. And maybe that was a mistake. I don't know.
Yeah, that's where we get back to too. I think the draw to JSN and trying to get him featured into the offense, because you're already going, well, we can trust this. We want to get to JSN. We can trust these guys. They've held up so well over there, as opposed to no, what's worked is going to more of the 2 tight end sets. That's been your bread and butter. And it's helped these guys help this line out when you can keep those guys in the block. It did not seem like the blocking schemes oftentimes had the pass protectors in place. They had no answer as well for I'd call it the cover zero blitzes of the Bengals, where they just brought too many guys for you to block. And like you said, there's no one person it's to blame for the struggles offensively Sunday. It is one that you can go through a couple of different people and parse out the blame. And I will say that, as though I don't like to I think there's too much blame thrown at Geno. Geno does have his share of blame that he's got a field here that is completely valid. It's just when we start to overstate it, where he gets the largest chunk, I come back to more of the offensive line struggles at the forefront of this. I think the way I've been able to parse this out, the best way is to put it like this from my standpoint, Brendan. I'd go 50% to the offensive line. I'd go 25% to Geno, and I'd go 25% to Waldron, in trying to kind of put the blame across the board a little bit. You didn't run block at all. You didn't pass protect at all. It's hard for the rest of the offense to function without either of those two parts working. Now, the other two guys didn't help the situation, being Waldron and Geno, in my opinion. Is this a fair take on your part? My part?
Yeah, I think so. There are obviously other issues with that game as well. Like, there were opportunity, like this is just the pass protection element of it, I think. Where you're talking about just like the ability to protect the quarterback long enough for him to make plays. I think that there's other stuff within the offensive performance in that game to unpack. But if you're just talking about that, I can get behind that.
Yeah, agreed. And thanks for the donation, Chris. Appreciate you watching, as you do with both of us on our channels. And man, we'll see how it goes. If the offensive line gets healthier, I think me and Brent are going to feel a lot better about those 2 games. If it does, as we approach it, still look a little dodgy, I think we're going to have a hard time finding a win necessarily in those 2 matchups, either on the other side of it. That's for sure. Big Patty Daddy asks, tips to get viewers on YouTube. I'll let you lead with that. Let you lead with this one, then I'll give him my thoughts.
I mean, I feel like, this is going to seem like it's not especially helpful, and it won't be immediately, but you have to be willing to do this for a long time. I made videos on this channel for like 5-6 years and barely anybody watched. And then COVID happened and I blew up. And I probably would have blown up anyway eventually, because I was making so many videos. Eventually you just kind of saturate things and something hits. Like, for a lot of people, you end up making that one video that just blows up and your whole channel expands from there. That never really happened with my channel, but the point is, if you're trying to do this in a way where you're actually going to be going after getting a bigger audience, you just have to be willing. You just have to understand it's probably going to take years.
Agreed. I think the thing I've run into, Big Patty Daddy, I've done some helping out with studios down in California with people that are doing channels, aren't Seahawks channels, just channels in general. And you advise a lot of these people on stuff they should do, and this and that's wrong, or this right and wrong. There's two things that I think I've kind of derived it all down to. First off, it's like Brendan said was the main point that you got to stick to on this, is that you're not in this for the short term. If you're going to start up this channel and expect, well, let me see where I am from a month from now, then you're not ready to start up a channel. You need to be in this to understand that this is going to take me years potentially to kind of fully get my footing. Absent, like Brendan says, you get a viral video, which you don't want to cut on. That's the anomaly. That's not the easy thing to attain. So you got to commit to the long game on this. You also got to commit to, I think, early on, something that I especially should have learned early on, Brendan, that I look back and respect and say, this is where I went wrong, Big Patty. And that is that it's a quantity over quality approach here. You know, you get too much on trying to make the perfect video to begin things, when really it's just about getting content out. Get content out. That's at the head of this. So the more you create, the better return you're going to get. YouTube's algorithm likes consistency. So that's that's really at the head of it. And like, if you let that be kind of a guiding light, in my opinion, Brendan, correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, but if you let that be kind of just a guiding light, it'll kind of answer whenever you have a question about whatever specifically you'll have. Should I do this topic? Was this topic going to be one that's going to cause me to take 2 weeks to get a video out, or I can get it out, you know? But I think the quantity over quality approach starting up is probably really the best way. Would you not say as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think of something else that I could say about it. Yeah, I can't really say too much more about it than just that. I think that sums it up.
Yeah. And certainly too, like we do here, Big Batty, you know, once you get to 100 subscribers, you know, embrace the live stream shows. Took me a long time to kind of realize live stream was a possibility, or a good method to go as an approach. Utilize that. Really as well. One last thing I'll say on this too, Big Patty, is take advantage of the shorts. You know, YouTube is trying to basically take over for TikTok. If TikTok ever gets hammered by Congress and shut down, then YouTube is going to be sitting there ready and waiting with all of these shorts built up. And so they're pushing shorts right now like nobody's business, in order to try to, you know, become that platform as an alternative to TikTok if TikTok does go away. So that's another spot to kind of maybe address or try to make work.
Yeah, I can't do the shorts thing. I just can't say anything in 1 minute. Like, I feel like you can't say anything of substance in 1 minute.
It's not easy for me either. I'll get a random idea, a random play I want to show on there from a game or something, but it's not one it's hard for me to come up. I say this, Big Patty, as being like Brendan, a guy that struggles to come up with that short content. But if I was starting out and looking for a little bit of a shortcut, the shorts will give you that shortcut. And what's nice about them, Big Patty, is you can do them on your phone. You don't need a thumbnail. So it does cut down the amount of time it takes you to then upload and get stuff produced, especially when we're to that golden rule of quantity over quality, at least to start. So I think those would be, you take those pathways to begin things, stay committed to it, keep your consistency there, and you'll take off, man. You will. It takes a little bit of time, but you will. Thank you though, Big Patty, the dono, and 12 long months as a member of the channel. Appreciate you for that. Doodle Bob, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, does Jamal Adams have any chance of being re-signed?
I don't think we need to think about that right now. Let's get through this current contract that he's on and see where we are. Like, he's still got 3 years left on it, right?
Yeah, Doodle Bob, he's got 3 years left on this. And so you're not really gonna, I mean, maybe they could do a restructuring, but I think that they're just gonna, at this point, if he plays like he's played and stays healthy through and just kind of roll, they're gonna probably just roll with the contract over the next couple of years at that point.
Right.
I think they'll be happy to say we're good with this. He's back up to running. We'll roll with this. So no, I don't think that that's on the table currently. You don't have any money you'd really save by it. Like, the only thing I could think of is maybe you say you're not going to really save money either, because what they convert is base to bonus this year. So you still have all the old bonus money on the other extension before you could even get to the new extension. You're right. It's kind of null and void, because we got to remember, Doodle Bob, they don't negotiate until they get to the final year of a deal with players anyway. So
correct.
And we're at least 2 years out from that. Thank you though. Appreciate the donation. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, okay, after Brendan's Raptors share, he needs to give his 1 through 5 wager recommendations as well. Thanks, Killer B. Well, I'd have to bring it up and have to give him a couple calls on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely take the over on any Geno bets you can make, because after everything that he's had to hear this week, I think he's gonna go out with a vengeance this weekend. But other than that, I don't know.
Let me bring up a couple picks. I'll just give you a couple. You give them a couple of year nays on these, Brennan. I'll give you a couple of year nays of some of the good ones I see on here. So let's go to the Seattle's picks this week. We've got Geno Smith for more than 251 passing yards against the Cardinals.
Yeah, I feel like the Cardinals are going to keep it close too because they're keeping every game close. So I'm not worried about it being like 30-0 at halftime and then Drew Lock comes in or anything like that.
So we're going higher on that one, higher than Geno's 251. Kenneth Walker, 70 yards rushing, higher or lower?
70.
It's tough, huh?
I'm going to go under. I think we use more Charbonnet because right now the whole world is up in arms because we didn't use Charbonnet enough against the Bengals.
DK Metcalf, more than 65.5 yards receiving.
65.5 doesn't seem like that much. I'd go over. I feel good. I go over.
All right, so we got the first three picks here for Brendan, which are going to be overs for Geno Smith and Metcalf, under for the Kenneth Walker one. Joshua Dobbs passing for more than 218 yards in this game, Brendan.
They got no James Conner, right? He's on IR. They're going to have to throw the ball more. I'm going to say over.
We're going to go over on that. And I'm not going to do the Marquise Brown one that they have available here. Let's pick one other random one here. Let's go with let me find a good one because I think that Marquise Brown's been kind of injured a little bit. So
that sounds right.
I don't want to have you do having a bet on a. Let me find one. 1 second. I know this isn't scintillating. Okay, how about this? One of these two. Give him one of these two for the final bet. Kenny Pickett going against the Rams. Stafford going against the Steelers. At LA. Pickett passing for more than 222 yards. Or do you like the bet of 269 with Stafford, higher or lower?
I'm going to go under on the Pickett bet. I feel like going under on Kenny Pickett is always just kind of a winning proposition.
Well, Garth Brendan just doesn't trust those baby hands, man. What can I say? He just doesn't trust them baby hands. So there's your picks, man. Down the line, go with the Pickett under to finish things up there, Garth. And I'll have my picks. I like Brendan's picks, so I do sign off on those. But I'll have my picks tomorrow as well. I'm going to go through the rest of the action out there across the league, see where the injury reports are, all that stuff. And then I'll have you an updated one tomorrow, Garth. 100%, man. 100%. But thank you for the donation. I do appreciate it. Very kind of you tonight, Garth, for all the dono drops, brother. You're awesome. Garth with another $5. It says, Killer Bees, give me your top 3 current offensive lines and an offense similar to the one Seattle runs. Interesting question.
Well, let me think here.
Eagles don't run our offense.
No, they don't. Shoot. Hold on. I got to take a look at this. The Bills don't really run our offense, do they? Not really.
No.
Let's see here. Like, what are the other good offensive lines in the NFL? Let's just start there.
I think
we already said Eagles. Lions offensive line is really good.
Lions, and they do run a West Coast offense, so I think you could point that one, I think, as being one that's really feasible. How about the Browns with their heavy use of two tight end sets there and some of their short passing attacks since they've been there? They're not really it's more about moving the chains as well.
Yeah, okay. I think we got to go there. And do you think the Dolphins' offensive line is good, or do you think the scheme makes them look better than they are?
I think the scheme makes them look better than they are. Outside of Teron Armstead, who's a notable name on that line that really stands out to you.
I remember they drafted that USC lineman that I hated in 2020, Austin Jackson. I don't think he's that good.
They hated him too. That's why they signed Teron Armstead.
Oh, are they? Is he not even playing?
Well, I think they pushed him to right tackle at that point. Okay. He did the old, like, all right, let's salvage him over at right tackle thing. You know what I mean? Started out as like, here's our prime left tackle of the future. Then they're like, okay, let's salvage him. Get Teron Armstead in here.
Yeah, it's like it's like the chain of failure for an offensive lineman. You start at left tackle, right tackle, left guard, and then at that point,
then right guard.
Yeah, maybe right you guard, can go to right guard.
You get the double team help then. Well, maybe once you get some double team, maybe he'll be all right.
Justin Britt hit like every branch on the way down the tree before he found
he did. Yeah, he did. He went all the way down. He just skipped the whole left tackle, left guard thing completely. So we've got 2 good ones I think we feel solid with. If I was to go with the third one, I mean, hard to not point to the Niners line, even though I don't think it's great. I really don't. But I mean, it performs really well, and it does have Trent Williams, and they do run the West Coast offense.
I mean, that's another offensive line that is so obviously helped by the scheme, though, right? Like
Yeah,
that entire right side and really the left guard is not good.
I just can't quite think of another. I'm trying to go through the rest of the teams out there. I mean, Kansas City's offensive line's okay, but they lost Orlando Brown this offseason. I think Joe Thuney's not played as well. I don't know if it's as clear that they would be the one that would be the team there.
Chargers offensive line isn't that good, is it?
You got Slater and you got that Zion Johnson kid from BC that we looked at, but there isn't. And Lindsley,
Corey Linsley, yeah.
So I mean, it's okay. It's not as clear on the third one, Garth. I'm going through my mind, and I'm not really seeing a clear third. I could give you I think some of those names teams we just mentioned would be possibilities there, but I feel much stronger about the top two that we put up there. The third one's a little bit more of a, because again, there's a lot of teams not running our offense necessarily, even that might have good offensive lines, I would say. So that's probably what makes it a bit distinct, is it's not as easy to pin down because of that. Even with the Chargers, I'm not totally sure they're running now, especially with Moore there. He's got a lot of those college designs within his attack, which isn't as much built to the West Coast base of things. Maybe a little bit. I'm sure he's got some of it in there, but it's a good question, Garth. Tell you this, there's not a lot of really good offensive lines as you think about it throughout the league. There's some bad units out there.
A lot of them are covered up by the scheme and play calling.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Well, like I said, the Niners, how do you pair that between one to the other? Because I think Niners, like with Purdy, I think that line can be in a place where if you're the right defense, you can expose them a little bit. If you can force them not to have the game kind of easy for them with how they do with their schematics and opening things up all the time. But thank you, Garth. Appreciate all your donations tonight, man. And good luck this week on the bets. Concierge with Nolan's dropped already a $50 drop, but he's back with another $5. Thank you, Nolan, for that drop, man. I appreciate you. That is, you're very kind with all those support here tonight, folks. It says the Browns are not allowed to ruin the throwback jersey game. NFL script won't allow it. That's right, man. You're going to sell any jerseys if we lose, right, Nolan?
I'll tell you, if we're playing PJ Walker, that's going to be an opportunity for Witherspoon and Woolen to start stat padding those picks. He's going to give you that guy was off. I don't know how they beat the Niners with him playing the way he played. That was miserable.
I think the defense did something no defenses have been willing to do against this Niner attack, and that's go man and press things up on Birdie and make him uncomfortable. And then Niners lost some, we know this about the Niners, Brendan. Like, they've had this offensive explosion since Purdy's gotten in there. It's also correlated with their skill position players who've had a lot of injuries at times throughout their career, all becoming healthy at once and remaining healthy throughout Purdy's time in there. There's been guys might miss a game here or there, but everybody's basically been running since he's been in there. Comes through this game and Williams rolls that ankle. McCaffrey goes down. Debo goes down. Don't have the guys to throw to now on the outside. They're running man press. They've come with a great game plan as Cleveland to attack you with it. And that's, I do think some of this is kind of as straightforward as that. And just for whatever reason, teams in this zone heavy league we are in now, Brendan, are not willing to play this Niners team with those man-based, concepts. And maybe they just don't have the guys to do it. You need the guys that can get it done too, which the Browns do.
Yeah. It's possible Dallas would have done it if they had Diggs, right? Like, it's at least possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, we might not need to do that much against that Browns defense if PJ Walker plays anywhere near the way he played in that Niners game, because he even with all the things we're saying, he tried everything he could to give that away.
Yeah, with our luck, Deshaun Watson will be back by that game and playing like Texan. You don't think he's come back?
Well, it's kind of starting to sound like the Ben Simmons thing, right? It's like there's nothing wrong with him, but he's like, no, I'm not right. I'm not I can't do it.
I guess so. It's possible. And he's got that Cleveland Brown guaranteed contract they gave him, Brendan. So it's not like they can, it's like, what are you going to do?
Even if he does go out there, he's mostly looked bad this year, right?
It's true. He hasn't he's not been anywhere near Watson and Texans time. That's totally true, man.
Yeah. I think the Wilson trade has been topped, by the way. So our time as having the greatest trade in NFL history, I think it's over after less than 1 year. I think that Watson trade is worse.
might have a strong possibility to it. Yeah. I mean, it definitely could be in the neighborhood of the worst with how he's looking, because he is, for as much as shade as Wilson gets, Watson's looked, I mean, even worse, right? It's just he had
I
that
think it is.
suspension at the start of the year that covered it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, but that's obviously part of the deal, though. When you traded for him, you knew he was probably going to get suspended for some period of time.
I mean, it covered
Maybe
up
you didn't.
where they just thought the back end couple of games was him knocking off rust. I mean,
Yeah,
like that they
yeah,
passed it off to that.
true. But 2 games this year, his completion percentage has been like 55%. He's crazy inaccurate. Even the one good game he had against, I think it was the Titans, he had that one play where he's getting tackled and he just throws the ball behind him for like no reason. It's like the Aaron Brooks play, but worse. Like he's just like even you have stuff like that, even in a game where he actually played really well. So combine that with the fact that they gave him the fully guaranteed contract, and I think they gave up more picks than Denver did for Wilson, because I think
Three
it
firsts,
was
wasn't it?
what?
Wasn't it 3 1s?
I think it was 3 firsts. So
I
they
think it's
gave up
three pure
more.
1s, I believe.
Yeah. So I think that's a little bit worse. I do.
Browns were middle of the road last year, right? Were they
With
middle?
Brissett, yeah, they were passable.
So I mean, that's the one thing I'd say with our picks is that we got 2 top 10 picks out of it, a top 5 pick and a top 10 pick. I think their 2 picks probably will end up finding themselves more. Those 3 first-round picks will be all middle of the road, and we got the 2 2s and the players in addition.
Yeah. But when you're looking at it from the Broncos side of things, the Broncos are going to be able to, it's going to hurt, but they're going to be able to move on after this year if they really want to. And I think they will.
Yeah.
Like Deshaun Watson, you're never getting rid of that guy until that contract is up, because it's fully guaranteed. Like you're going to live with that contract forever.
Yeah, you're right. You couldn't even decide we're going to split this into a post June 1st designation. Like, oh, great, you tapped your cap ad for 2 years, not just one. You don't have the money. You got to let him roll. So they are the definition of stuck in that situation right now with him as a player. And yeah, it's never good when the doctors are like, no, he can play, and he's like, no, there's something phantom going on in here. It's just like, I know I got like a ghost in my shoulder. I don't know. It's not showing up on the MRI. I don't care. It's in there.
Exactly.
Hopefully it gets another week. I certainly feel a lot, even though Watson hasn't played his best. PJ Walker, like you say, has got me feeling like the defense is tucking the napkin in, grabbing the fork and the knife. You know what I'm saying? Especially with no Nick Chubb to kind of relieve some of the pressure off of him either.
Exactly.
But thank you again, Nolan, for all your donations, brother. Jason Tudor, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, loved your Baldur's Gate review, Brendon.
Yeah, I posted that a few hours ago.
I'll have to go check it out, man, because I'm eventually probably going to get around to playing that game. And that seems to be the game that's been the most delivering the goods of recent games coming out this year, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. It's already been reported that other studios are angry that Baldur's Gate 3 came out because it makes them look so bad. With all the work that they put into making that game run so well and work so well and be relatively glitch free and do all these things that modern games constantly don't do. It actually supposedly has made other studios angry because it makes them look incompetent. Like games, like Jedi, games like Jedi Survivor, which was a good game, or Hogwarts Legacy, they don't run well when they come out, and it's like, why? Because Baldur's Gate 3 is huge. It's like a whole continent that you're exploring. And the game, like, there's never a point where, like, you click over in this area and suddenly the whole world flips upside down and you're falling into space forever. And then the game triggers like 17 error pop-ups and crashes. Like, you're not seeing that stuff.
Yeah.
And when you compare it to a game like, did you ever look at the Gollum game that came out a few months ago?
Yeah.
Or Redfall?
Yeah. It was hilarious. It was, I mean, not just like hilarious, like it was legit hilarious looking at the models and the gameplay and the glitchiness of it. It was insane that somebody thought that this was something we should put out there on the open market for people to play.
Exactly. So yeah, more than it being a great game, because I do think it's a great game, but it is a remarkable achievement, I think, to make a game like this in current day.
Yeah, and it's just good to hear a successful game out too, just above all else, because there's so many coming out now that just are hyped and promote all the hell, and then they come and they're not delivering anywhere near what they promise. And we're looking for, I don't know about you, but I'm just looking for gaming to start to take its next step forward. What's the next thing that's going to kind of be unlocked in this realm to kind of energize it, because it's been a little stagnant in recent years, I think.
But yeah, very good.
Thank you though, Jason. Appreciate you. Wicked Garden. Sorry, a little bit late on acknowledging the dono, but I want you to know I'm thankful nonetheless for it. So thank you for that $20 donation, Wicked Garden. I really, really do appreciate that. Very kind of you. He says, we've lost our identity in the red zone, gotten soft. We need to get nasty in the red zone and enforce our will. Charbonnet, 2 carries. Also, where was the 12 and 13 personnel? This loss was also on Waldron. I'll let you lead with your thoughts on this, but I love a lot of what Wicked Garden's got to say here. So certainly got more on top of it to add.
Well, I'll tell you, I got a video coming out in the next couple of days about this, but I did a little digging. Red zone offense is valleying right now across the NFL. I mean, the Dolphins are on pace to have the greatest red zone offense in 25 years, but other than them, red zone offense is really struggling right now. Through 6 weeks, teams are averaging a touchdown like 53% of the time in the red zone, which is the lowest it's been since, I think, 2011. So something's going on.
Scoring's down too, right?
Yeah, I think scoring's down. Quarterback play feels like it's down. Every quarterback is turning in a stinker. Even these, elite quarterbacks. We're 6 games into the season at most for these quarterbacks. It feels like every one of them has had at least one bad game except for Tua and Jared Goff. And Tua did have the Buffalo game, which wasn't great. So maybe that. But
yeah,
there's something going on here. I don't know exactly what it is. Some people are theorizing it's the cover 2 shell that these teams are running that's really just punishing these quarterbacks. I feel like with the way the NFL is right now, you really have to be willing to take what the defense gives you every single play. The moment you decide you're going to push it a little bit is the moment you're just going to get punished. I feel like there's a little bit of that going on, but this is a league-wide thing right now, and we're going to have to we're going to have to try to figure out what the counter is.
Agreed. Well, I think there is some of the counter in Wicked Garden's statement, as I think it does exist in there, and specifically maybe the nastiness, the running the ball. I think if we were to look for a common denominator throughout the league as to why the red zone efficiency's gone down, I think that we could also point to, and maybe let me know if you think I'm wrong on this, you could also point to the fact that the teams have gotten way less committed to running the football, and that it always used to be the way that this played out offensively, of that you pass between the 20s, you run to score. And that not just that you're just getting inside the 20, now you run all the time, but that there's a heavy prevalence of trying to run the ball once you get inside that 20 and make it happen in that way. And teams, because they don't consistently stay and trying to run the ball throughout the course of the game, once they get down there, they've just been so pass happy that now to try to, adopt an identity of, okay, we're going to be a smash mouth team down inside the red zone is not so easily worn as a costume. You have to have that as your sort of identity between the 20s to have it be to where now you can, bang it in a little bit. I think there's a little bit of that at play at all. Do you think that's a fair way to look at it too?
Generally speaking, yes, I agree with that. I think there's some of that going on. I will say for this game, I don't think the run blocking was there. So I don't think running the ball more would have necessarily fixed anything. A lot of people after that game said, why didn't we run the ball more? Why did we get away from the run? I think the answer is because the run wasn't working. We had good runs in the first quarter, and then everything was just run into the brick wall for a half a yard. Yeah. And I don't think it would have gone any better if we had run the ball more in that game. Now, when we get some of these players back, like a Damian Lewis, then it'll be different. But in that game, I actually don't agree with what a lot of people are saying, which is we should have run the ball more. No, I think you need to run the ball when the run's working.
Yeah, agreed. I think that as well. And just within Wicked Garden's point on this, I think you're right. The running game wasn't working, and that they did have some attempts down in the red zone trying it, to your point, that it was not only did you not work, you weren't getting, but maybe a negative 2-yard play. Some of this is, I wonder though, too, when the thinking of getting Charbonnet was to have him in the use down there in the red zone where everything does become compact, and a hard-nosed runner like that can take a 2-yard run and bodies are hanging off of him and turn it into 4 or 5 yards, whereas Walker's more of your, I'm going to dance and find some holes somewhere. And that maybe it works better to have the hammer down there than the dancer down there. I think that that's a fair assessment of it a little bit. And I would have liked to have maybe seen a couple of those carries go to Charbonnet down there instead of Walker in those moments, because I think he can be effective potentially down there for us. And this is part of the reason you drafted him, is not to expect Walker to have those hammer carries, but you got the hammer for the hammer carries. And so I agree with that assessment of it. The 12 and 13 personnel, kind of like we talked about Wicked Garden. Brendon, I don't know if you were buying what I was selling on that too. If you went away from it a little bit, at least partially, or at least a nice chunk of it, because you're trying to fit more of JSN into the offense. You buying that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else it could be. Like, it kind of has to be that. And I'm kind of conflicted on that one, right? I'm kind of conflicted because, to me, I mean, everybody over the last couple of days has been freaking out. I'm sure you've seen the pictures of JSN running wide open for a game-winning touchdown, and Geno's looking at him and not throwing it.
Yeah.
And everyone's like has their own read into that. It's like, oh no, Geno's the worst quarterback ever because he didn't make that throw. There are people who are saying, oh, he was already looking to run it at that point. He was already getting pressured. You know, people going back and forth about that. On the one hand, I do think maybe we got a little overzealous with getting away from those packages. On the other hand, if you don't have JSN in the game, then he's not running wide open, because there was another play where he was running for an easy touchdown and Geno didn't see him. So I'm a little conflicted on how to feel here. Yeah, we kind of hung Curhan out to dry a little bit, but you don't get those plays where JSN is coasting to the end zone for an easy touchdown if he's not in the game. So I can kind of see it both ways. I'm not super against what I saw on Sunday, but I feel like there's got to be some balance here.
I do as well. I do think it is them trying to fit him in a bit in this offense and find that role. And we want him. That's why you picked him in 20th. That was one of the holes in your offense last year, was the slot receiver and not utilizing that better and more. And then defenses could kind of predict into that a bit. Utilizing the 12 and 13 personnel is going to be an important part of what we do going forward. There's probably got to be a balance though to it, into trying to find the ways to work Jaxon in as well, because there's going to be defenses that you're going to be best suited to hammer them with the 12 and 13 personnel, and then there's going to be defenses that are probably better suited to have you hammer them with the slot receiver and the 3 wide receiver looks and go at it that way. So I think you just got to judge the opponent by that, a little bit. I think too, Brendon and Garden, thank you for the donation. Pretty much fully agree with you on it, man. I think a little bit more running. I think like Brendon, it wasn't necessarily fully all the thing, but definitely at the heart of it, using Charbonnet in more of those situations a bit, I think could be helpful. I think a little bit of the pressure stuff with Geno missing some of these shots in this game, Brendon, and to me, there's, I guess, 2 to 3 notable moments that stand out for people. The DK one down the sideline where, he's frustrated. The JSN one, and I guess there's another JSN one I didn't catch on my tape review today of it, but it might be on there when I look a little closer tomorrow as I'm prepping for that show. There's some big moments that are bright that stand out in Geno missing, but some of this becomes a little bit cumulatively, and it's not to explain all this away. Again, Brandon, let's be clear. You and I both agree. Geno didn't have a good day. It was not his best performance, but there is also a cumulative effect of, since about week 13 of last year, has this offensive line pass protected, would you say? I know you don't have the data in front of you, but just give me your gut instinct on this. If I was to tell you between 0 and 32 teams from week 13 onwards of last year through the week 5 now, where would you put the ranking of our pass protection specifically in general terms through that time period?
It's got to be close to the bottom. Like, going into the season, if you looked at where our offensive line was ranked on all like the major analyst sites like ESPN, PFF, I don't know if Football Outsiders is still active anymore. They might have actually gone defunct, but sites like that, and they're ranking offensive lines. We were bottom 6 on every list, and that was because of the way we played at the end of the season last year.
Yeah,
there's no other reason why it would be that low, because most of our offensive line was young, and most people would say, oh, they're going to get better because they were highly touted rookies in the case of our tackles. Damian Lewis was entering a contract year. They were ranked that low because they looked that bad at the end of the season. And so far this year, we played mostly backups. I think backup offensive line have gotten more snaps on this offense than starting offensive linemen in totality.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And is it not a reality? So if we know that you have an offensive line not pass protecting well through that period of time, that's a good amount of time, week 13 through now this week 6 or whatever we're in. Is there not a cumulative thing that starts to add up on a quarterback, where if it's one thing when I'm under one game of duress and I'm under constant pressure and I'm just kind of, I get through it, I'm still playing confidently within myself, I'm getting hit at times, But then you go 9, 10, 11 games in a row with it being that way, even over the course of 2 seasons. And doesn't the quarterback start to feel a little bit of the ghost? Don't they start to miss now some of the open reads down the field? And that when we start to backtrack this a little bit down to it, it's not to fully excuse Geno's performance, but to explain it a little bit more of that stuff is cumulative. It starts to add up. It happened with Russell Wilson near the end, where he was starting to see ghosts from all those years of taking those hits too much, starts to feel ghosts, starts to feel pressure that's not there, starts to maybe miss an open read from time to time that you normally think that they would see. This is where my confidence comes back, Brendon, to if the offensive line gets closer to full strength, Geno will then start to perform better with it because he'll start to have more of that time in the pocket and he won't miss as many of those open throws. Am I out on a ledge on that? Or would you say that that's a fair assessment of the situation?
Yeah. Or another way to put it would be you're going to have games like this. Games like this are going to happen when the pass protection breaks down to this extent. It's kind of like playing Russian roulette. Eventually, it's going to get you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, I think you and me have both kind of been on the same page with the Geno thing. He's not an elite quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think either of us has ever said he's an elite quarterback. I think that he can look like an elite quarterback in this offense when everybody's healthy.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's actually an elite quarterback. And I don't get angry about that because remember, we didn't pay Geno like an elite quarterback. He didn't ask to be paid like an elite quarterback. So I'm going to give him more latitude than I gave a guy like Russell Wilson, who always wanted to be paid top of the market. And if the day ever comes, and it probably will come eventually, when the Seahawks have a quarterback who's making top of the market money, and by then it might be like $65 or $70 million a year because that's where we're headed.
Yep.
You know, you better believe that I'm going to hold that guy to a different standard than I'm holding Geno to right now, because every quarterback in the league that is starting is either on his rookie deal, is making more per year than Geno, or is named Jimmy Garoppolo.
That's right. You got to take into account what he is making. I think there's a little bit of a thinking here, Brendon, that the quarterback position is sort of this person that flies on high, and that they're there to be if they're the guy, right? This vague term that people like to apply. Well, is he the guy or he's not the guy, or he'll take you somewhere, he won't take you. But there's this thinking that this quarterback who's the guy, if he's to be that guy, has to be the carrying you through the day. So if he's under an onslaught of pressure, doesn't matter. He's just so damn good that he's going to win the day. You know, things breaking to hell here, left and right, receivers not running the routes all the way through. Doesn't matter. He's just going to carry the day because he's the guy. I feel like it's a beer commercial or something. Are you the guy at quarterback? But this is not what we're trying to build as a team, in my opinion, Brendon. You're trying to go back to the blueprint of how you established the model prior that got you to back-to-back Super Bowls. And that wasn't finding the guy at quarterback in Russell Wilson. He's a really good quarterback, but when you went to the 2 Super Bowls, he was a very efficient, functional quarterback who could make some plays from time to time over the course of a game. And the team is, to me, trying to build a little bit of the similar, albeit a bit of a different, because I think Geno will be way more volumetric in his passing attempts than Russell was in that early 2013-14 time. So he'll be asked to do a little bit more. But I do think that he is, in my opinion, a top 10 quarterback. And I don't think that makes him elite. I think elite's top 5, top 3. But I think he can be a top 10 quarterback, like you say, especially when things go well. And I do maintain this again, as I've said multiple times over. I posted this in my chat, Brendon. I didn't get one response. I've said it multiple times. Nobody's given me an answer back to that. Show me a quarterback in the last 3 years, 5 years, 10 years who goes on the road down 3/5, 4/5, 5/5 of his offensive line against a team that's going to be one of the 2 or 3 best teams of their conference that given year, and went out and was able to carry the day, overcome that offensive line issue. Not regardless of what happened with the receivers or the running backs or their defense, that specific thing. And I've yet to have anybody who's able to supply an answer on that, providing that question. And if none of these elite quarterbacks have been able to do that, or then why are we hanging the expectation on Geno that he should? That's kind of where I'm trying to go with it.
Yeah. I mean, I have no problem with people being critical of Geno right now. And that, to me, that Sunday game, that was the first time since Geno was named the starter last year when I felt like he blew it. And I do think he blew it in his own way. Even with the protection being what it is, there were opportunities for him to make plays that he didn't make. I have no problem with being critical of Geno. I was very critical of Geno right after the game was over. But again, it's like I said, you can be critical of somebody, but it doesn't mean you hate them and you don't want them to be on your team anymore. There's some nuance there.
Yeah. Yeah, and he didn't play, and I'm with you as well. And even though I am showing my support of him, I've been on the record saying as well, didn't play a good game. But like you said, it's the nuance of didn't play a game too. We got to get rid of him. Got to find them. Got to find the middle ground on that. Y2K, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, can we address how tough of a bad mofo Jake Bobo is? Indeed, man. He's a blocker with attitude out there and purpose, and is a pass catcher with his run after the catch, and he gets smacked in the head, standing right back up and smiling, and he's definitely got some toughness to him.
Yeah, that's one thing you can say about these guys. Like, it's one thing that I'm starting to take more notice of the more football that I digest, especially in things like college football as well. Like you had, Metcalf, even in a game where he did a lot of things that made a lot of people mad, he leaves with the hip injury. So now he's got the rib injury and the hip injury. A couple drives later, he's back. Like that's a guy who's tough. And I'm really starting to, I feel like in the modern day, you notice those things more now. Like I feel like in the 90s, players would just get hurt, and you as a fan watching at home on the TV wouldn't really notice. Like you'd be like, okay, that guy left the game for a little bit. That could be anything. And the announcers may or may not talk about it. Now with Twitter, every time somebody tweaks anything, you're hearing about it, and you're aware of the fact that, wow, these guys are playing through a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's like what we saw with Michael Penix the day before, where he's got cramps so bad he can't throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field. He still finds a way to drive the ball down the field, get you down to the 1 foot line. Your offensive line fails you, and then he gets the ball back a couple minutes later, and he goes and wins the game, even though he's in immense pain. And it's like, okay, we can add toughness to the discussion when it comes to Michael Penix now. And you really start to pick up on those things more, I think, as the way in which you digest football becomes more multifaceted.
Especially because we have those guys like Deshaun Watson or Kadarius Toney type that will lean in the direction taking advantage of, I don't feel quite right, I don't want to play. There's a lot of guys that'll take the easy out when they get the injury and say, I'm not good enough, I can't go. Versus those guys that will. So the other thing too is that when you start to hear the stories of hearing about some of the usage of Toradol and stuff like that back in the day, and just to understand how much these guys have to get their body back to being prepped to play on Sundays and what they got to go through. And that, you got these guys taking these shots like it's, they're taking their vitamins almost just to get through practice, just to get their body prepped. And to know that that's how much pain you have as a player to go through, and just to get yourself right and ready to play every Sunday. It's a special breed that, can fight through not only injury, but hard hits and all that stuff. But Bobo's definitely one of those guys. Metcalf's definitely one of those guys. And I'm glad he's on the team, man. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with this kid going forward. Every chance he gets, he just does the most with it. So
Absolutely.
I don't know what the plan will be for him in the future, Brendan, but I think he will be ever more an emerging part of this Hawks future with this receiving core.
He's got a place in this league.
He does indeed. Connor Oshwagler, thank you for the $2 donation. Asks, who are your top 5 Seahawks so far this season? Well, thank you, Connor, for that $2 dono. Give me your top 5.
Witherspoon, Wagner, Walker. I'm going to go with Walker. Wow, a lot of W's in there, actually. I just realized.
yeah. Woolen.
Well, I maybe I still want to go Metcalf because his catch percentage is so high this year still. Like, it's higher than it's ever been. I don't know if it's top 5, though. Let me think about that for a second. Part of me wants to go Colby Parkinson here because I think he's actually been better than the numbers indicate. Like, his blocking has become genuinely a weapon. But I'm not going to go there yet.
How about Reed?
Reed, yeah, okay. Reed's a good one. And then I think I'm actually just going to go Metcalf.
Okay. I'll go. I like your Witherspoon Wagner pick to go at. I would include Metcalf in there. I think I got to go Jaron Reed, and then I'll go Boye Mafe as my number 5.
That's a good one too. I like it.
Yeah. I like how Boye is looking here. He got a kind of freebie sack this week. He was unblocked, we had one of those plays too, where you have the edge defender coming off and the tackle just doesn't block the edge. And sometimes it's just a 4-man front. And I don't know what it is in your offensive scheme that just has you open that up at times, but it's freaking weird. Thank you though, Connor, for your donation, man. Appreciate you. Concierge with Nolan with another $5. Thank you, Nolan, for all the donations tonight, man. I do appreciate it. He says, DJ Fluker's name has been heavy in the chat as a guard option. Looking ready to go on social media. Your thoughts?
I don't mind it. He seems like he's in pretty good shape. I will say this, don't think for 1 second that he's going to come in and play tackle for you. Just get that out of your head. That's not happening.
No.
People are trying to figure out a way to replace Jake Curhan before Abe Lucas gets back, and that's not it. But if you want to bring him in as depth at guard, then I'm not against that. It would be better if he was a left guard, because that's kind of where we need depth right now. Right guard actually seems okay between Haynes and Bradford, but I'm not against it.
Yeah, that's the tough part with this is Fluky really is a right guard. That's where he fits to me, Nolan. Pure and simple. I don't think he would hold up a left guard very well. He's also not going to be the most mobile of offensive linemen when you're out there. So he's not really technically a great scheme fit for what we do. But if Haynes isn't at 100% and if Bradford's fighting through an injury right now, it may be best, being that we're not getting a bye coming up anytime soon, to have him there as an option to go to, because I certainly don't like the thing of us feeling like, well, we've got to have Haynes and Bradford trotted out there because we don't want to have to put McClendon Curtis out there. That doesn't mean that they're the best option. That means that you don't want to go to the worst option. So Fluker's not going to cost you any money at this point. He'll come in on a league veteran deal, a league minimum deal. He knows the program. He doesn't know maybe the scheme or anything, but he knows the coach, knows the program, knows what time it is on that. I don't think it could hurt. I don't really see the downside on bringing him in at that point. Especially since I don't think, Brendan, we're going to have a trade to make. I'm not really sure that there's really a deal. Maybe now that we finally have heard Anthony Richardson's going to be out for the year, maybe the Colts finally get back into a realistic state of mind and realize what they got to do.
Well, you heard about Grover Stewart today, right?
No, what happened with him?
He's suspended 6 games for PEDs.
Oh, there goes Buckner. So that's out. So I just ever increasing, because are they going to move Buckner now in addition? You think?
I mean, they could, but I don't know. Our defensive line is really good right now. I'm worried about it holding up as the season goes on, but man, those guys are playing good. I know PFF killed them for the Bengals game, but I don't know why. I don't know either. I'm trying to figure that one out.
I didn't get the scores on that one at all. They didn't match to my eyes what I saw from them up front. So that was weird. Yeah, I'm a little bit with you. You don't really seem like you need it, but I worry about needing it by the end of the year. And I just don't know that the Colts will be willing to make a move there, though. And if they trade him now, that puts their defensive line in a semi-non-functional state with their two inside guys completely out. But that would be them tanking at that point. So maybe that's a possibility here on the table for this. On the way that this could go. It's kind of hard to say. It's a little bit tough to say. So, but Nolan, in regards to Fluker, I'm a thumbs up on it. I don't think there's a better guard available on the market, and getting just a little bit of depth in here, him better than McClendon Curtis. And this line's gotten really thin early on here, so might help to reinforce it just a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm for it.
Appreciate you, Nolan. Thanks for all those donos tonight, man. You're great. CJ Kurzman, thank you for the $5 donation. Reading many thoughts from people believing that the red zone struggles versus Cincinnati boils down to Waldron not being able to scheme in high leverage situations.
I mean, how were we in the red zone last year?
Not great, 17th.
Right, and so far this year we're 20th. So both years basically right around average, slightly below average overall.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I've definitely seen him do some good things in the red zone. But like I said, red zone scoring is down this year collectively. Mm-hmm. Like I think league average right now is about 53%, and we're at 50. So
I don't think you can undersell that point too in conjunction with the points being down, because you have like 5 years in a row. Points goes up, point goes up, point goes up, point goes up. Then this year randomly right now, and maybe this equalizes out over the course of the year, but this year to start out, points are kind of significantly down. And that's with the freaking Dolphins putting up funny numbers. That's cooking the books a little bit. That should be pushing the numbers, but no, you're down. So I think it's a good point on your part, looking at that at least initially. There's other reasons, but that is a kind of initial point. There's a little bit of a league-wide trend out there in addition to this.
Yeah, and again, I'm trying to figure out what's causing it. Like it does seem like defenses have found something that works really well to limit teams from scoring in the red zone. But I wonder what it could be, right? Because we talk about how every rule change is designed to favor the offense and hinder the defense.
It's really hard to say. I think some of it does come to the run game a little bit, and teams just don't run consistently. And that you get down there, everything gets compacted. There is no ability to now take advantage of teams playing deep coverage so that you can dink and dunk underneath. Now they're taking away the dink and dunk because there's no threat on the back end. You got to run the ball, but you don't have the personnel or the commitment to running to make it happen at that point. I think some of that's there. Some of it's that your defenses are getting faster all the time. You give them a shorter area to cover. You got some quick cats out there that can get in a lot of areas. So there's not as much open grass, but we'll see if this continues throughout the year. I will say the one thing that stands out in the red zone when watching the tape, and no, it's not all, I think, on Waldron. I think Geno had a couple of missed throws in the red zone. Not a lot. There's a couple. But I think the one thing that stands out to me with Waldron, and I don't know why this has taken place in the offense, is that we've become very stagnant prior to the snap. The pre-snap motion is gone from the offense and completely gone when we get down by the red zone. And I'm not really sure of that. That's one of the ways that the Niners have maintained a lot of usefulness down by the red zone is they're running pre-snap motion every damn play. So I don't get why we kind of went away from it. And it seems like it's gotten more stagnant with time. And I don't know really why. But that was certainly in watching the red zone cut-ups here, just looking them over again and again. Man, everybody's just in the same place prior to the snap, post-snap. And there's no motion. There's no guys already going a little bit. And that stood out to me, and the lack of creativity overall and some of the route concepts and what you were running down there from Waldron. It wasn't the most, you run to a spot, sit down. You run to a spot and sit down. You run here to a spot and sit down. It wasn't a lot of like flood zone concepts or run this way and come back over this other direction, like the Detroit game. We had the Lockett running the crosser into the back of the left corner of the end zone, where everything starts to the right and looks to the right on the rollout, and then you come back and throw it over to the left. There's none of that creativity being employed this past week against the Bengals with Waldron.
Yeah, I mean, he got beat. He got beat in this game. He got beat, and I'm just very hesitant to try to draw big, massive, broad, sweeping conclusions based off what happened in that game. I see it. People trying to say it with Geno, people trying to say it with Waldron. I've gotten some comments saying, I don't understand the Waldron hype. What's so good about him? And it really feels like it just largely stems from this game. Maybe a little bit the previous week as well, but I think we have to understand context here a little bit better. And sometimes a bad game is just a bad game. You don't need to make it more than just a bad game.
Agreed. Especially when it's not against a Bengals team that's not too bad, right? That wasn't a bad unit across from it over there. There's a reason you and I had this game as Seahawks losing on the road is we thought not because the Seahawks are bad, because in large part because the Bengals are a pretty good team and getting to play at home. That also kind of factors into this too. As they say, they get paid to do their job as well here. Yeah. But thank you, Kurzman. I appreciate it, man. It's a great thought on your part. And I think it is definitely a complicated answer to the question as far as this goes with last week, but definitely Waldron's got his share of some blame to field here. Garth, thank you for another $5 donation. I appreciate all your donos tonight. Garth says, "What's funny is Watson being in his head with injuries reminds me of a conspiracy theorist left tackle on Green Bay. Dr. Joe Rogan is busy with second opinions."
Yeah. I mean, by the way, it's totally possible that Watson is genuinely injured in a way that the doctors can't pick up on. That's very possible. I'm not saying that's I'm not saying that I'm sure that that's the case. I'm saying it's a possibility, and Watson doesn't exactly deserve a lot of benefit of the doubt right now, I don't think.
And there's maybe a sneaking suspicion you might have that, I start out I have last year, I play like crap. I start out this year playing like crap. I have no answers for why I'm playing like crap. I'm got an injury. That there may be that right there. So I'm not saying I know it to be there, but that there's some maybe smoke to that potential fire, right? Just a little bit.
Maybe.
A little billowing, maybe not full on. We'll see.
Yeah.
As long as he doesn't play against us. That's the bottom line here, Garth. You know what I mean?
Or play against us and then play bad.
Yeah, exactly. One of the two. Cool too. We'll take either or. Either or. Thank you, though, Garth. Appreciate that. Garth, double dipping the dono train again here, man. Thank you, Garth, for all your support tonight on the channel and ever, as always, with that. I'm sorry. Let me get to the dono here. Gar says, now that you all bring it up, how bad was that smack to Bobo's dome? I didn't see it till the YouTube highlights.
I mean, it was bad enough to draw a penalty, so it was that bad, at least.
I legit thought for a moment they might consider the targeting. I wasn't calling for ejection, but look, that Quandre Diggs ejection hit that he had against the Patriots a couple of
I
years
remember
ago.
that.
I thought it was pretty equivalent to that. And if you're gonna eject Quandre for that, then why shouldn't the Bengal defender be ejected for that hit? I mean, it was a direct hit, head-to-head hit, and it looked very much like a targeting spear move to me. I'm not trying to say I know the intent in his heart, but that's how it looked at least. So at the very least, straightforward, easy as you get to call a penalty flag on that play. No doubt about Garther being it was right on the line. It's like, no, you led with your head, you hit his head. He's a defensive player at that point. That's garden variety, 15 yards all day. But I kind of think it should have been, if we're going to do the letter of the law, if you're going to hit us one way without, I didn't think Quandre should necessarily be, ejected at that point. But if that's the standard, then that's the standard.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the NFL, they have to determine what their rules are, and the players have to abide by whatever rules NFL comes up with. I'm sure you're hearing now that the hip drop tackle is actually very possibly going to be banned this offseason. The NFL is looking at it. The Geno tackle, which you a couple weeks ago actually came down against the idea of legislating that tackle out, but that's a situation where, yeah, if the NFL says you can't do it anymore, then you're going to have to find something to do. And it's their league. The players are just playing in it.
Yeah, I think it's going to make it very hard on defenders to tackle, especially when they're not in heads up on a guy to tackle him. When it's an odd angle that they're going at him with, it's going to be tough to, them to not avoid that kind of. It's just a common tackle in football. This is going to happen. So I don't know. You're just going to get more penalty flags to the game at that point. You're not going to get guys to stop doing it because it's going to come down to either make the tackle or don't make the tackle and get the penalty flag. Guys are going to still make the tackle. And unlike the targeting hit that has to do with CTA and limiting these head hits and head trauma. The rolling up thing is just not that necessarily. So it's hard to legislate out natural football moves from the sport. It really is. And that's one that I think they're going to have a hard time with getting it to stop. They'll just end up throwing more penalties for it, though.
Right.
That's for sure. But Gar, thank you, man, for all your donations tonight, man. You are awesome. Appreciate you, brother. Jason Tudor, thank you for the $5 donation. Says the middle ground question here is if you want to pay Geno 30 to 40 million for 10th-ish ranked quarterback next year. It's a great question by Jason there. I love this.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Can you do better than that? You can draft a player, but we're not going to be picking high enough to get the two superstars. So the best quarterback you might be able to get would be you'd have Quinn Ewers, who a lot of people do not like. This is not a blue chipper. Michael Penix, not a blue chipper. There's Bo Nix, not a blue chipper at all. I don't like him at all. I don't think he's even good as a pro prospect. You've got, I don't know, Cam Ward can maybe get up there. Riley Leonard, who basically broke his leg a couple weeks ago. We're not going to see him again maybe this year. I don't know. But so the idea that you're going to draft a rookie who's going to be better than Geno is how many rookie seasons in NFL history have been better than the season that Geno had last year? Has there been one ever?
Not that
Dan Marino?
Yeah. Maybe Andrew Luck, maybe.
Ben Roethlisberger, maybe.
And, Roethlisberger, no, because he had like 10 attempts a game that year.
Yeah. I guess Cam Newton put up numbers, but I don't think he was that good.
Yeah, but it wasn't him it was him running the ball, then it was more than him throwing it, I would say. It's happened maybe a couple times. Andrew Luck is a legit one that it happened with. I think he was good in his first rookie year. But it hasn't happened but a handful of times at most in NFL history.
Yeah, and when it happens with the generational guys. Caleb Williams is, but you're not going to get Caleb. We've been over this. John Schneider, it's not in his religion to trade up for the number one overall pick.
especially because this year it'll end up costing two firsts, not just one extra. So it's the trade up in the first round is not going to happen. It hasn't happened throughout John Schneider's time here. Brendan, you bring up a great point about the availability of what quarterbacks they have to pick from. Penix will be off the board. Caleb will be off the board. Drake May will be off the board. Is there still some good quarterbacks to be had there? Yeah. Here's the best part of this, though, is that you're going to get to have both. You don't have to go Geno or the rookie quarterback because you're not going to have a chance at the top first round pick guys. You can take a second, third round guy and have competition at the quarterback position. And if indeed, like many of you are asserting out there, another quarterback, anybody else but Geno will be better than this. Well, that'll be proven out with the camp battle that they are going to have when they duke it out down the line. Then when it comes down to them coming into this, we'll see how that plays out at that point. I'm looking at right now the salaries next year. So the top end model basically for quarterbacks, your Patrick Mahomes, your Dak Prescott, your Deshaun Watson is $60 million is their cap hit next year. 60 million. Geno's probably going to land somewhere between the 30 and $40 million because he's got to hit the escalators and he's not likely to hit probably all the escalators. So here's the question. If I want a top 5 quarterback, I got to pay $60 million for it. Fair to say that based on the next year's numbers? Okay. I've got Geno at 35 million. So almost just about half the cost of a top 5 quarterback level play to get a top 10 level quarterback performance. Yeah. I think that the numbers kind of add up that's good value on that deal at that point, in my opinion. What say you?
Especially when you then have to find that quarterback. Like, can you get that quarterback? Are you trading for Patrick Mahomes? No. Are you trading for Justin Herbert? No. Are you like you can't get these guys. It's very rare one of them ever becomes available. It's usually because of some extreme extenuating circumstances. And sometimes it's a case of buyer beware. Like Denver thought they were getting that with Russell Wilson when they traded for him. And they now are thinking like, oh, well, I guess we know why they wanted to trade him now. Dang.
Deshaun Watson,
another good example. Aaron Rodgers is kind of an interesting one, I would say, because we'll never know what he would have been this year. But that was an opportunity. Like those quarterbacks don't become available. So the only solution would be to draft a rookie and say you're the starter over Geno. And yes, that would be cheaper. It would be a lot cheaper than Geno, right? But are you expecting to go on a Super Bowl run with any rookie quarterback that you can get in this upcoming draft? Like my favorite, Joe Milton, he's a project. He probably shouldn't play as a rookie at all. Like as of right now, he's not even really a good quarterback. He's just got talent.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Or Spencer Rattler or Cam Ward or any of these guys. No, I don't. Yeah. And I think maybe some people look at the Russell Wilson example, but to think that you're going to do the same thing you did in hitting Russell Wilson in the second, third round, I'd love it if it happened, but to count on it and say, we'll dump Geno to count on this thing happening where this rookie will come in and replicate what Russell replicated when he had the team ready to go. I don't know. I don't know that I see that being the way that takes off. I like much better the idea of you go draft the second, third round quarterback and you hold on to Geno and let the competition play out. But there is not another guy to go get. Somebody might say, well, what about Kirk Cousins? He'll be a free agent. Yeah. You think Kirk Cousins is taking a discount? Do you think he's not taking less than every last red letter cent and he's going to come off a year where he's going to again throw for 4,800, 4,900 yards? He's not going to get 55, 60 million a year. Of course he is. So, do you want to pay double the price for that? Maybe you'll get the top 5 level performance because those names I mentioned that are up there on the list right now, Brendan, Deshaun Watson, 63 million, Dak, 59 million, Patrick, 57 million, Kyler Murray, 51 million, Matt Stafford, 49 million. Those guys, a lot of those names on there, the teams aren't getting the value for that price when they're paying, I think we're fine with Geno. I'm going the long way around to answer this question a bit, but I do think it is worth it, Jason, for top 10-ish, because 30 million is a lot, but it's about less than half what the top guys are making. And that's a big difference in the amount you're paying them.
Yeah. I don't think you can. I don't think there's any way you can do better than Geno next year. The year after, now we're talking. Like 2025, you can potentially do better than Geno. Potentially. Yeah. But 2024, I don't see anyway.
That's where I like this setup to where you try for the second, third round pick. You get to make a determination between that and Geno. You get to really learn who Geno is and whether he is the guy or isn't the guy. You had more time to kind of figure that out, especially with a healthy offensive line. And then if it's not like you say, now you're at a point where, okay, we can make the aggro trade of 3 first-round picks and go get that quarterback that's the bubble wall, or go make the major trade for the QB that a team doesn't want to necessarily spend the money on, and you can take that route if that's the other viable approach at that point, but we're not rushed to make the decision. Then we can take our time with this one, in my opinion, a little bit to let it play out.
Yeah.
Thank you though, Jason. Appreciate that donation, man. Both your donos tonight. You're awesome. Y2K with a $2 dono. Bradford got solid offensive grades. Thoughts on his play?
There are bumps in his play, but I'm very impressed. This is far beyond what I thought he was going to be if he had to play as a rookie.
Agreed. Would love the upside and the physicality and the movement ability he showed at LSU, but he was a project. He was raw, so raw coming out. And it was that he was so physically tantalizing that had you just encouraged, but you went, man, it's going to take him a long time to get there. I think Dickerson, some of the best work he's done here on this team is representative in Bradford's play on the field this year so far, and getting such quick returns for a kid who was so raw. A 90 grade as a run blocker in this game, that's a phenomenal score from PFF to hand out. They don't give that away like Tic Tacs. So him pulling off that grade was fantastic. And he actually held up relatively decent in pass protection in this game too, when you consider how bad Haynes was. I will say it's probably a little bit of a different draw, right? Having one BJ Hill versus one guy having to deal with DJ Reader on that interior of that line, you know, like one's going to be a bit of a tougher pull for you probably to have to deal with, but he did good and he's improving and coming along great. Highest rated offensive player in this game. Am I right on that?
I think he was.
Yeah.
I think he was.
So Bradford getting it done, and slowly but surely, I know it doesn't seem like it with all these guys beaten up, but slowly but surely we might be having our offensive line in the future starting to kind of develop before our eyes. Got the tackles in place. Bradford starting to settle in there. Maybe Oluwatimi can eventually take, or if not Brown, take kind of full control of the center situation. Then it just becomes about the left guard at that point long term. Right. But love what I'm seeing from Bradford, and he certainly looks ever emerging the answer at right guard into the future for us, Y2K. Question, Brennan. Has Bradford got to start over Haynes?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. Haynes was grading out extremely well on the right side before this game. Okay. I think you just got to put him over there. I don't know how this happened, by the way. It doesn't make any sense to me how he completely forgot how to play on the left side, but now is really good on the right side.
I think he's injured. I think he's still not anywhere near 100% health.
Yeah. If he's injured, then put Bradford in. Let him eat. But if he's healthy, I'm giving it to Haynes.
Fair enough. But certainly loving what we're seeing from Bradford. That's for sure. Matthias Arnett, thank you for the $2 donation, Matthias. And it looked like it posted a double dip dono for you, the same posting. So sorry about that, but thank you for the double dip donation nonetheless. Brendan, what's the difference? What's the defense's ceiling and floor this year?
I mean, I think the floor is really, really low, because the floor is like, oh, we go back to the old soft cover 3 zone stuff, and then it would be bad.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen how bad it can be. I think the ceiling is 7th or 8th.
I love that. I love that number too. You didn't go to top 5. You kind of stayed up outside of top 5. I love that.
Yeah.
I
don't think we're going to be better than the Niners. I don't think we're going to be better than the Jets. Jets are playing their hearts out, trying to win games after losing. Browns, Browns are doing things that should be impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Cowboys defense could correct itself a little bit. I don't think they're going to be elite this year, but they could be really, really good. We'll see how the Bills respond to losing all those players. I don't think they're going to respond that well, but you never know.
Yeah, agreed. Bills could be a team in 2 that goes to like pilfer some of the Bronco players and finding some help there. I do say I'm with Brendan Matthias on this one. I don't think you get to top 5. I think 7th, 8th is probably about as high as you can get defensively for this team in the way that they're put together. And then I do think the floor is also really low here because of the fact we've seen this team slide into those, like we saw in the Rams game. I mean, if they showed it in that game on an offense that's not, it's still Stafford's been playing really well this year and the receivers are doing their job. But I still do say you could slide back into that with a couple of injuries very quickly in that level of play. So it's relying on staying healthy to find that top end, but that's probably what you say about either side of the ball. Be it our offensive line or be it our secondary. You're without one or you're beating up on one and they're not going to perform well. You got them out there. They're going to be, doing their job and handling business. So it's a wide variance, Matthias. Normally we'd be a little bit closer on this one, but we've seen them at their worst and now we've seen them at their best. And it's 2 different ends of the scale. unfortunately, or fortunately, but at least we're on the right end of the scale right now, Matthias. So we're rounding into the right direction. Thank you, brother. Sorry, go ahead.
No, nothing.
Garth Knight, another $10 donation. My goodness, Garth, you are very kind, brother. Appreciate you so very much. Says Brando, I was talking to a Raider fan last evening who wants Penix Jr. Had no concerns with the reverse spin. He says the reverse spin is better, but he's a Raider fan. Nice guy, though.
Yeah.
They don't
Did you
understand their
see
spin
the
rates up in
Did
Vegas.
you see the updated Heisman odds?
No, is he leading the way?
He's beating the field.
Jeez.
He's minus 145. Second place is JJ McCarthy with plus 1,000.
Well, it's Caleb certainly had a not horrible, but had himself a rough game that certainly is you're not going to win a Heisman with a game like that on your resume on a season. So, the competition, it hasn't got as tough there that he's going up against, I think, coming into this week. But I'm glad to hear it, man. That was one of my favorite Husky games to watch in my life, to be honest with you. And I just, to have two top 10 teams going at it, then Oregon being at their best. We played Oregon at times where they've been obviously better than us where we were, and then they got the better of us. And it was like, well, here's one where you feel like for the first time in a while, you got two, both even keel, both strong. And it went back and forth. It was like as advertised. It was everything that you'd want, including, game-winning touchdown thing. It's just like magnificent game. And Penix was brilliant. Must have been fun doing the play on your side of it, man.
Oh yeah, it was very fun. But I think the concerns about Penix as a first-round pick, there's not much he can do to dispel them. He's injury prone. It is what it is. He's old. It is what it is. And he's got probably the best receivers in college football other than Ohio State. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's ever going to be able to overcome that in my view of him. I like him, but I do see him as a second-round guy right now. I don't know if I can get moved off that.
I think because of those the two things you raised at the front of this, right, that aren't necessarily have to do with him on the field, the injuries and the age. I mean, that the injuries are not understated. It's multiple ACL tears. It's AC joints in the shoulders. He's not been hit at all this year or the last couple of years by the designs of their offense. And Oregon started bashing him. And I'm glad to hear it was cramps. I was wondering about that. I was going to bring that up to you. I was like, okay, well, now he's got the first game. He starts taking hits. And there at the end, he's like doubling over and looking like he's in the greatest of pain. But it turns out that those are cramps. So that's not as, I guess, worrisome. But that was one thing I was going to watch for because he'd been hit like 3 times or something prior to that, leading up to that point. So I'm in the same place you are a little bit with it. I love his talent, but the age and the injury thing are something you have to factor in these quarterbacks. I did so with Bryce Young and Matt Corral in recent years, and I'd have to do the same thing with Penix Jr. It's a part of the process that factors in. You can't just ignore it and go, well, I think he's over the hump now, because you have like a gut instinct he's over the injury hump. It's likely to kind of follow him in the pros, and he's not likely to stay as clean as he has in college when he goes to the pros.
Yeah, it would be one heck of an offensive line and system that allowed him to not get touched the way he doesn't get touched in Washington.
Yeah, agreed. But he spins a great ball, and he threw some pretty passes last week, some absolute dimes across the board. And he did some great things just as progression reads, man, looking off safeties. He showed you kind of the full arsenal this past week. He's a real fun player. I wish I could get to the first round place of it, but I can't get past the injury age thing. I think it's part that's important here. Thank you though, Garth. Thank you for that $10 donation. And be funny. I don't know if I'd be happy for Penix if he ended up on the Raiders, man. That's I don't know if that's going to be a place for success for him. You know what I mean?
He's got Devontae Adams for at least a couple minutes until he asks for a trade.
Willie, I was going to say Willie, because I don't think Devontae's staying there another year. I think he's, after that last hit he took this last week, he's like, okay, I'm done. I'm good. Appreciate you though, Garth, for all your donos, man, including that big $10 drop. Sim Ranjit, thank you for the $7 donation. Says, hi, love your work, guys. Thank you so much, Sim. A question: is linebacker Devin Bush a potential trade candidate since he was a healthy scratch for week 6? And happy B-Day to Adams. Oh, happy birthday, Jamal. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that's right. I don't think Devin Bush has any real value. And I want to keep the depth. Like, if he gets hurt, if one of the guys in front of him gets hurt and you have Bush traded away, then I think the next man up would be Radigan, right? That
That's
doesn't
right.
sound good.
No, it doesn't. And let's not forget we do have a Bobby Wagner that's 34, 35 years of age here that he's doing great. But, is he going to hold up the whole year? We got to, hopefully so. We'll have to see. I think some of this too is that you have Radigan active because Radigan's going to be a special teams guy. I don't know if Devin Bush's game at this point is much that's who he is, so the team probably is thinking, well, if we have that Bush active, that's one less special teams guy versus Radigan being active. And I think Radigan's doesn't have any more practice squad things or something like that. I forget how it works with that. He's going to be on the active roster throughout the whole rest of the year on the roster. So some of this is a little bit weird with that. I thought too Bush was still getting over an injury thing that he had been working through. I could be wrong on that. I don't know if he's 100% healthy with some.
Yeah. I still like him. I still think he's a pretty decent player that we may end up needing at some point this year. I think he's just inactive because we feel confident in what we have, and maybe we think Radigan's better for special teams, I guess.
That's my thinking on it. It's hard to say otherwise because he's played well for us when he's been in there, Sim. I mean, when they've asked him to work out there, he's gotten the job done, including back into preseason. So I like keeping him here myself, though, too. I wouldn't want to trade him because I like having the built-in depth. It's already something we've called upon in other positions, and to have him as a readily available guy versus Radigan, that's a huge drop. I mean, that's a monstrous dip from one guy to the other. You got a former first-round talent to a former undrafted rookie free agent.
I think so.
That's a bit of a dip as far as the ability goes. Radigan was not good in preseason either. We got to acknowledge that.
Bush was, by the way.
Bush was. Radigan was not. But thank you, Sim. Appreciate the love, man. Love right back out to you. And thank you for that donation, man. Very kind of you. Phoebe Moore Seahawks says, I see more and more ridiculous flags. Any thoughts?
There have been some bad ones. No doubt about it.
My feeling is that in general, the NFL has gotten over legislative through the years. They keep adding more flags, and more flags. And it does upset the flow of the game to me at times. And sometimes it seems arbitrary and subjective in the way they call these flags, where it doesn't seem like everybody's held to the same standard or each officiating crew is operating off of the same standard. It's almost like an umpire with his own strike zone. Everybody's got their own little particular way they want to call it to their own little way. It makes it just hard to understand what is a flag, what isn't. And again, too much. There's too many of them to me. Let the players play. It's a physical sport. Let them play.
Yeah. I mean, we keep watching though, so I don't know if the NFL feels any obligation to change anything is the thing.
Well, there ain't any other sports that are competing with them, man. They're high on the hog right now and they're only getting more popular. So to your point on that, yeah, they probably don't feel any need to do anything different in how they're doing it. But it's annoying, Phoebe. It's definitely annoying. And we're the most penalized team in the sport right now. So we get the majority of it. So, I guess
Are we actually leading the league?
I thought we were, yeah.
Wow.
Per game, remember, we don't lead in total penalties, but we had the early bye. So if you slot it out by penalties per game, I think that we are in number one. Number one, Brendon.
All right. Well, I mean, the old Ravens defenses with Ray Lewis and Ed Reed were always number one in penalties, and they got along okay. So
I've long not worried too much about this. Is what you've had with Carroll throughout his time here. So number one, to expect it to change, probably not happening. If it happened in 10 years. Number two, it didn't prevent you from winning a Super Bowl. So I'm not going to get super up in arms with our high prevalence of penalties, but I will go with the subjective nature of the penalties in the sport and how many are called, because it gets a little redonkulous sometimes, Brendon. Little much. You can't celebrate a play because you always got to wait to look for the yellow flag. That's when there's too many flags being thrown out. Yeah. Okay, yes. Okay, we got it. Y2K, thank you for the $5 donation. Says 4th and goal from the Super Bowl on the line. Marshawn Lynch runs wide. Slot corner has to make the tackle. Who do you want making that tackle? Spoon or Winfield Sr.? Jeez.
Spoon might get a penalty, so I'd go Winfield Sr. because Winfield Sr. is going to get that love from the officials because he's a veteran, and Spoon's just a rookie.
I love Brennan's logic on this one, man. I was about to slice down the middle and say I can't make a call between those two, but I'll go with the senior on it. Senior in his prime, and he'd probably get that little benefit of the doubt there against Marshawn. I don't think either of them are taking Marshawn down open field and with him with a head of steam in front of him. I think that they're just giving up both too much weight at that point, but no denying each is a great tackler. Phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Do me a favor real quick. Just talk real quick if you could. Then thank you, Y2K, on that $5 donation. I'll go with Senior as well with Brendan. Appreciate you on those donos. Do me a favor, answer this one here with 283 real quick. I'll be right back. All right, brother? Give me just 2 seconds.
All right, 283, thank you for the $1.99. Evan Brown has had a really solid year so far. Yes, yeah, he has. And remember, he's played part of this season out of position. He's bumped over to left guard more than once. So he's been over there for a little bit. That's not his position. He is a center. He is a center all the way through. So I personally don't think that Evan Brown can be the long-term center in Seattle because we don't have the money and we already have a young center that we're very excited about. But it is starting to become a little bit interesting here, where if we get to the end of the season and Evan Brown continues to look really solid and we haven't seen hardly anything from Oluwatimi because he's only played in the one game, then it's going to be an interesting decision, right? You've got a really good thing going on offense at that point in all likelihood. Do you want to mess it up by taking it apart a little bit and letting your starting center go? But with the way he's playing, I do kind of feel like Evan Brown could probably get a multi-year deal worth a non-trivial amount of money. So this is going to be kind of interesting to see how this goes if Evan Brown stays on the field and stays playing at this relatively strong level.
Yeah, thank you, 283 for the $2 donation. I appreciate you, Brent, from that. I agree as well. I do still think Oluwatimi is the guy that would be great to have him slide in the future because you get a lot of nice load balance going on there where, the line is super cheap at that point. You're able to then maybe take some of those resources and, like, for instance, go get a really great left guard or whatnot that you slide in and pass having to draft a guy. But can't deny Evan has played the position at its best since Justin Britt in that 1 year that he had before he got the contract. I think he's been equally pretty solid, both as a run blocker and a pass protector. Kind of surprised to see him hold up as a pass protector as well as a center, because that was the one place he wasn't as strong on when he was with Detroit in that realm, but he was more of a run blocker for them. But he's been good overall. I think he's been the guy doing the line calls down there and steadying the ship for the most part. You've asked him to play guard at times, so he gives you some positional versatility, flexibility there. You got to love that part about him too. So, yeah, I think solid is a good way to put it, 283. And if he keeps playing this way, somebody's probably, like Brendan said, going to give him a contract.
Yeah, I can't imagine him settling for 1 year, $2.25 million next offseason.
No.
And honestly, I was really surprised he settled for that last offseason.
Me too, especially with how important offensive linemen are. I mean, they're hard to find, and teams tend to hold on to the ones they got. And it's, I mean, 2, not 3, not $4 million, 1 year, 4. I mean, like Austin Blythe got a $4 million deal sitting on his butt all year with the Chiefs. He didn't even play. He got beat out by Creed Humphrey, and he got $4 million. So that was we had a lot of good value signings this offseason. Me and you were kind of lamenting, man, all these 1 year deal, but man, Schneider, it's not going to stop him into the future, is it? Because he actually had success. Mario Edwards Jr., Jaron Reed, Evan Brown. He's got some success this year, unlike in recent years on some of those value signings. So more of it into the future. Brendan, all we're doing is looking at third wave free agents next year. No first. Only third waves, man. That's all we're looking at.
I mean, that's real. That's 100% real. We don't have the money for the first wave guys, I don't think. I've looked at the books. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably true. And I don't have a big problem with that. No. There's not really a heck of a lot in free agency that I'm going to want this year, I think.
Nor is your team really going to need the big free agent additions with how you built it. If the young guys continue to take the steps along, there's going to be very few holes you have to fill. You just need the development to continue to further along with the youngsters.
Right.
But thank you, 283. Appreciate you for that donation. John M429, thank you for the $5. Says, Brandon, thank you for the Christopher Walken hype video. I showed my mom because she loves Walken, and she thought it was actually him. Killed it. Ha. No, thank you. I appreciate that, John. I wasn't sure if that video was going to, that was a little bit of a risk one there, Brendan. Like, I don't know. This one could definitely end up in a blowback situation, but I got people that no, post it up. So I'm glad you liked it. I'll do some more of those definitely into the future since it does seem to be one that people really resonated with. And I had fun putting it together. So
yeah,
appreciate it. Always like doing a good walking, Don't worry, Seahawks fans. We're going to bounce back this week. No problem. Promise you.
What's your favorite movie with Christopher Walken in it?
That would be Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, me too.
The Swatch was Daddy carried the Swatch in his ass 5 long years, and I took it, carried my ass 2 years. It's a great scene. Now, little man, I give it to you. I love that movie. It's one of my all-time faves, though.
Probably took him half an hour to shoot his scenes in that movie, and
Oh
he's
yeah,
one of the most memorable parts.
one of the most memorable parts. And he's got also my favorite pure movie scene of all time. This, I think, my favorite scene of all time, because I think it encapsulates all the things I love most about movies, is the scene between him and Dennis Hopper in True Romance. Where he's it's the scene where he's trying to get him to give up his son, Hopper, and Hopper knows he's going to be dead. And he tells the story to Walken about his ancestry while also needling him. And both of them are acting it perfectly. And it's Tarantino's script, and it's not Ridley Scott, Tony Scott, his brother, filming it. Gandolfini's in the scene, in the back. Everything's just like, it's a great scene. But yeah, love me some Walken, man. Love me some Walken. Thank you though, John. More to come on that for sure, brother. More to come on that for sure. Garth Knight with another $5 donation says, if Penix is picked by the Raiders in the first round, I'll have Marquise Tui Asasopo flashbacks. Yeah, where was Marquise draft? He
was a Raider, I remember, but I don't know if they drafted him.
Yeah, I think he might have been the undrafted. He was a hell of a Husky quarterback. Doesn't get remembered enough. He had one game against Stanford with 300 passing yards and 200 yards rushing in the one game.
Yeah, there were some really fun Huskies quarterbacks during that era. There was a Six Killer.
Mm-hmm.
There was Cody Pickett.
Yep.
Yeah, there was, of course, Brock Heward. That was the first one for me. That was my first Huskies quarterback.
Brock was a good one.
Yeah, and then it was Isaiah Standback, and things were suddenly a lot less fun.
Yeah, they struggled for a while to get back to then they got back around. Jake Locker kind of was in for a while and did his thing a little bit there, but we had a lineage going for a while where it was from Mark Brunell and then Billy Joe Hobart, and you were kind of starting to roll through pretty well with some guy pro level guys.
My uncle sold a car to Billy Joe Hobart.
Was that the car that Hobart got paid for that got us into sanctions?
I have no idea.
Is that on your uncle? Is that on? Did he bring the Husky program down? Did he bring the freaking national champion Husky team down with that loan?
I don't know, but my uncle ran a car dealership in that area back during that time, and sold a car to Billy Joe Hobart. I don't know if it was the car, but it was a car.
So when he got a 50 G ride, he got some deal on or something. I think that was
it's like remember The Irishman?
Mm-hmm.
At the end, he gets sent to prison because of his car. Because they can't get him for anything else, so they get him on the car that he got as a gift.
Oh, it was so obvious to me that the Pac-10 was coming after us because we were just so good. It was a way to knock us down the rung at that point. Like, we're becoming too dominant. It's like they got Dane Looker for a lunch. Like, that was included in it. Like, he got a free lunch at one point and that's just why you'll be no longer able to go to a bowl game for 2 years. Oh, thank you. Such trash. But thank you, Garth. And Penix is, I'll definitely have some flashbacks with Marquez. I'm not going to love him going to the Raiders if he went to the Raiders. There's some destinations that'd be ideal for Penix. He's got to go to a place with an offensive line. If he's going to a spot where it's spotty across the board on that line, it's going to set him up for failure more as much as for any quarterback out there, both on the injury front and, just not allowing him to play the position where he's at his best when he's kept him. It's true with every quarterback and keeping him clean, but him especially, I think, you let him get beat up and he'll get beat up really fast. So you gotta build that into your evaluation when looking at drafting him.
Okay.
But thank you, Garth, again for all of your donations tonight. I really do appreciate that so very much. Brendon, we've kind of through the donations, just about kind of gotten through most of this offensive performance through here or there, be it talk by Walker or the play calling or anything else. Is there some places that we haven't maybe covered on this offense that you want to maybe talk about? There was anything else that you think is be a part of the problems or maybe some of the encouraging things as we go forward here?
I don't want to get away from the fact that through the problems that he had, which are obvious, Geno did make some really good throws in that game. There were a couple people on Twitter earlier today who were posting clips of some of the really nice throws he made. And, they were basically saying, and I think this is true, people forgot about these good plays that he made because in the red zone, things just didn't go well. And you got to remember that he's still capable of doing this stuff. You look at these plays and you wonder how such a high percentage of Seahawks fans actually want this guy benched this week, and I don't want to dismiss that just because we didn't win and Geno ultimately didn't get it done. Lockett played good. I guess we can shout him out. Lockett made some nice plays in that game.
He did. Yeah.
As much as it was maybe a little annoying how it came about, I do think that JSN had a impressive game, and it does kind of indicate towards what we are going to be able to get down the line from him. So
Agreed.
That's good. I can't really think of too much else.
Yeah, I just to piggyback on your comments with Geno, this is where we get to that nuanced place where people go trash, bad, not the quarterback, not the guy of the future. And it's like, man, when you get a guy who has backup offensive line across the board, no running game to speak of, throws for 333 yards, and you go, yeah, that's trash. Go, boy, that's pretty extreme. And there were some throws in there, including 2 different 9 routes, both to DK and Tyler, that he hit in this game. There's a Tyler Lockett play that he hit down at the end that you talk about Lockett, where Lockett's got that deep in-cutting route, and he's got to step up and put that ball right on the line, right on the spot, and he puts it right on the money there for Lockett. Part of what gave you the position to be even down in the red zone to have that opportunity to bang it in. But there were some bad plays from Geno, and I'm going to go into this tomorrow on my show, a little bit of both the good and the bad. There was a lot of good in there too with it. It wasn't just simply he completely lost himself and became, a shell throughout the course of this game. It was just things got tough down by the goal red zone, and there's a lot of reasons for those red zone struggles, not just Geno. Lack of running, lack of creativity from Waldron, lack of pass protection. It all kind of contributed to it going sideways down there. It wasn't just one thing or the other, a chicken or the egg. It was all of it, and the hen house and the farmer's heart. Y2K, thank you for another $5 donation. Says trade Love to a winning team who needs a slot corner, swing tackle, someone who would be below but not well below average league starter. Sideways trade for a swing tackle.
I don't think anybody you can get in a trade is going to be significantly better than Curhan. As much as everybody's slamming Curhan now with good reason, I really don't think that I don't think he's that much worse than somebody you could trade for. The guys who are significantly better than Curhan are not going to be available in a trade.
I'd agree that Y2K. I just don't think that the what Snyder spoke to this too as well is that teams that have offensive line depth in this league are not giving it up. They're holding on to it. And to the point where he was talking about the cut down date that he was seeing teams holding extra tackles and guards on their roster to just kind of stockpile them. You're just not going to get your hands on those guys if they've got any value to them. As well as in regards to Julian Love, even though he's kind of a man without an active way to get onto the field a lot right now with Jamal back in the force and going, we also know that Jamal Adams has a pretty deep injury history here. And I don't think that we can just count on, well, Jamal will be fine now for the rest of the year so we can move, part of Love being here, him starting the games to begin this season is insurance for Jamal if he goes out, that you don't become non-functional at the strong safety position. So I think there's just a little bit more added value to him here at the moment than there would be in trade, because you wouldn't be able to get it, I don't think, a lot back, like Brendan said, in a trade here at Y2K. I think the options would be very limited, and you might just end up saying at the end of the day, well, it's the same as Curhan, all things being equal.
Right.
How it plays. Garth Knight, thank you and Y2K, thank you for that donation. I appreciate you for the double dip tonight. Garth, thank you for another $5 as well, brother. It says, if Brendan can figure out what vehicle his uncle sold to Billy Joe Hobart, how much in super chats on his channel would it take for this revelation?
Well, I'm never going to be able to find out now. I'll say that. That's not something I'm going to be able to ever find out. It's going to be like the briefcase in Pulp Fiction. It's a mystery.
The magic bullet. Let's also face it here, Garth. I mean, Brendan's a Husky guy here. You can't be having someone in his family having served as one of the point men for the downfall of the Husky program. That'd be like finding out he's got like a KKK member or something in his.
Yeah.
Not good.
Not good.
Not good. Family failing him on this one. So you leave that rock unturned. That's a mystery left for time and space and all that other good stuff out there on there. Appreciate you though tonight, man, Garth, for all your donations, brother, and as well your great sense of humor, brother. And Billy Joe, the man that can't blame Billy Joe again. I think every program was doing it. They just kind of targeted us a bit and decided we were the bad guys. I guess we're the bad guys. University of Washington, us up here, we're doing it bad with all of our 5 stars coming from in-state and whatever. I'm bitter about that, Brendon. I was so mad. It pushed Don James out. He's such a great coach, and like that pushed him out. That made him retire, and it was BS. All these programs. It's just that USC sucked, and all the other programs in the Pac-12 were mad because we were riding high, and they weren't. Oregon wasn't a good program at that time, or nobody was, right? So it was like, well, let's knock them down a peg. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a conspiracy theorist on it a little bit.
I could see that. I could definitely see that.
Well, Seahawks fans, first off, Brendon, I want to thank you tonight again. We almost went 3 hours here in tonight. Thank you for coming on in here tonight to the Hawks Nest to chop up what is not always an easy thing to chop up, that being a loss that has a lot of folks in feelings and a little bit of bitterness out there and whatnot. So thanks for coming in here tonight to kind of go through all the ins and the outs on this one, as I know it's not always easy to do with these kind of games.
Thank you for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Well, if you guys haven't already, do me a favor, hit that like button for me here with Brendon and me in the chat here. It helps this video get pushed out to other channels and searches on the algorithm. If you haven't already, please do get over to Seahawks Brendon Nelson. Search that up on YouTube and you'll be able to find him pop right up for you there. Get subscribed over to his channel as we do these shows multiple times a week. We'll be back. I'll be broadcasting on my side, but we'll be back over onto his side as the source point here on Thursday, as we are going to preview a Cardinal matchup, which I think we can firmly say at this, Brendon, is the one nice thing that we can say about this game that we know with 100% certainty. Don't think the Hawks are going to be overlooking this Cardinal team coming into this matchup. I think we're going to be taking them mighty serious.
I would say so.
So we will be back at 8 o'clock on Thursday to do that stream here on his channel with BNB Show as it does continue to roll along this year. Please do get subscribed on both channels if you're not already. Thank you, Brendon, for coming in here and getting this all chopped up. Had a great time with you as ever on this. And we feel really good about this team, man. Let's give them a little bit of positivity to finish it off. Give me some of your final thoughts. I just want to put this in the frame. I know that there's people that get to this place of it's an emotional sport and it drives you to certain conclusions really fast sometimes, especially after tough losses. The only thing I ask for in this team this year from my fellow Seahawks faithful, and you don't have to give it, but I just ask it, is just a bit of patience with the team overall. It's the 3rd youngest team in football. It's year 2 of a rebuild if we really want to take this down to the brass tacks. And the team is looking like it's on the right path overall. Is it perfect? No. Is there things to correct? Yeah, you better believe it. But I take away that being the overall arching theme of the season so far and what I'm seeing so far. How about yourself, Brendon?
I think that's the right way to look at things. Most of us did not consider this team to be a Super Bowl contender in the offseason. And honestly, I think you can make a better argument that they are now than you could have before the season started. I'm not saying they're there yet. And I'm not saying it doesn't suck to lose a game like that the way we did on Sunday. But I can see things start to twist into shape here more than I could have said before the season started.
I'm seeing the very same thing. We're not trying to give you guys, hopefully in 3 hours of a show, we've been able to flesh out these two viewpoints that are very similarly aligned in a way that is tangibly makes sense, rationally makes sense, logically makes sense. And we're trying to build that case to you guys. And this is where we fit and where we stand and where we feel on this. We're not here to give you empty. We don't do that here. We're not doing pom-pom waving. We're not giving you empty praise of the team when it's not deserved. We feel really good about where this team's going. So, I know we got many of our fellow Seahawks faithful out there, Brendon. They're suffering a little bit now. They're questioning their faith a little bit. We're not. And we're going to push you forward onto this to getting you back your faith too. This team's about to do some really good things this year. I don't know if they're going to get to contention. I don't know if they're going to get to a Super Bowl, but I know that they're going to be a really good football team. And our best days are yet ahead this upcoming season. So do not ever forget, even after a tough loss like this, even one that might have you up in your feelings, do not ever forget. Keep it at the forefront of your mind. The team's about to do some magical things, so climb back aboard this bandwagon. Don't jump off. It's too early. It's too early, so don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.